Bonjour, Mes Amis. In case the title wasn't explicit enough, before you proceed, I want to reiterate that this is going to be a discussion of the incredible game Clair Obscur, Expedition Chetishui. While I do have the typical soft opening of what we've been playing, once the discussion of the game begins, there will not be a non-spoiler period. This helps us to have a more free-flowing, organic conversation, and in the spirit of the story of this game's development, is more creatively liberating. If you have not played the game, consider this your warning. Full spoilers once the conversation about the game starts. Okay? Okay. And now, on with the show.
Clair obscur, trouble de rature, trouvera effet. Clair obscur, bordé aux peintures, trouvera sans elle. Clair obscur, trouble de rature, trouvera effet. Clair obscur, bordé aux peintures.
Bonjour et bienvenue au premier épisode du Little WYSPer. Cette série traitera des tatous, ce qui tout souchou. Vidéo et qui m'aspeu creativement. That was my brilliant first time ever attempt at multiple sentences in French. If any of you already shut off the episode by now, I wouldn't blame you. I had multiple attempts at that with Google Translate's help. And basically, what I attempted to say there in the frog language is welcome to the debut episode of Little WYSPer. This is going to be a sub-series, and what it's going to entail is basically anything that I feel creatively inspired by outside of the main Why You Should Play episodes. So in this case, it's going to be a spoiler cast because I and my esteemed guests here think that this is a very special game, and we have a lot to say about it. And I didn't want to do a standard kind of video essay. I wanted to talk about it with some buds. So that's what we're going to do for this debut episode. I do have some others planned, probably two other kind of Little WYSPer. Actually, no, wait, three others. Three other Little WYSPer episodes planned. Are they ever fully fleshed out and released? I don't know. Who knows, man? Life's weird. But my two guests are here not just because they are massive fans of this game. I haven't had either of them on the show before, and I had been wanting to and meaning to. It's just, life has to be a time and place. And so I found the right time, the right game. My first guest, it's appropriate that he's here for multiple reasons. One of which is he is Canadian, which I think by law makes him at least like 27% French by international law. He is a massive fan of the Persona series. He loves his big budget, story driven games, primarily from PlayStation First Party. He This week a Nintendo system released, and he is a notorious, vile, vicious, disgusting hater of Nintendo historically. Though I think maybe he will come around this weekend. Um, he is an ascendant streamer of games on Twitch, where he goes by Adiholic. He is Dorian. Many of you know him as Adiholic. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, bonjour, mes amis. I'm doing fine. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And yes, I am playing Mario Kart this weekend, so maybe, just maybe, there will be some love in the air this weekend. We will see.
There'll be some love in it. Well, that's what multiplayer Nintendo games bring out in people is love, of course. As we all
It's
know.
true. Also, I'm very insulted. I am no 0% French. 0%
Okay, you
French.
you
Just to be clear,
Albertans,
I'm far,
reject the
far.
French. Okay,
We do not claim the Quebecers. Although I don't know, the Albertans are kind of worse right now, but it's a whole other story.
yeah, I think everyone. I mean the Quebecers are OG like wannabe separatists from Canada, aren't they?
Yeah. They're the OGs, man. They at least they kind of earned it with some culture and stuff. I don't know what we're doing, but yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
My other guest, he's here obviously because he is a massive admirer of this game. He is from the far off land of Finland, which I believe is in the European Union, which means he is. If you're in the European Union, I think you're partially owned by France. as well as Germany. But seriously, as his name suggests, he is a massive fan of Sly Cooper. He is also a big Persona fan. He is a massive fan of the Trail series, which may or may not be relevant to this show in the somewhat near future. Stay tuned for that. He is a massive fan of the Assassin's Creed franchise, which he has done a video on amongst many awesome YouTube videos where he goes by Ryoichi Finn. Um, he is also a notoriously vile, vicious, disgusting hater of Nintendo and their hardware and their games. Um, he is Ryoichi. How are you doing today?
Bonjour. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I was about to say that. Did you pick us two for this episode because you know that we were the only two people in this world not busy with the Switch 2 this weekend?
Well. As it so happens, I am also not busy with the Switch 2 because um, Target is Target. John Target was sent a very sternly worded email to them, and although I am not a white woman, it had very strong Karen white woman energy. So
Oh no,
um,
I heard Sean got the Target treatment too. I'm so sorry for you
everyone did.
guys.
Target screwed up, man.
Oh,
They
it's
seriously.
terrible.
So I pre-ordered 3 Switches. 2 of them got here on launch day, including Walmart got here like 7 a.m. I don't know if you guys saw Walmart here in the States. They got people's pre-order Switches here by 7 a.m. to everyone's house, and they gave a free small reusable bag, and they put a can of Pringles and a drink. So they like got everyone free gamer fuel with their Switch 2. Best Buy got here on launch day as well. Target shipped the consoles on launch day, and I'm not getting mine till Tuesday. Whereas both of those 2 launch switches that I got on release day, other friends claimed them and I pre-ordered them. One of them already got it, even though I shipped it out like close of business on launch day. They already got theirs. So even though it was shipped off twice from the retailer and myself, so I'm like, Target, you really screwed up. So they screwed up majorly. It's bad, but I will eventually have my Switch. Nintendo, like God, gives the toughest battles to their strongest warriors. So that's what I tell myself
Of course,
to
of course.
avoid crying in bed in the shower. So it'll be great when I eventually get mine. But I shall overcome in the meantime. So we're gonna keep with a little bit of tradition for this. A little bit of soft opening. What are each of you playing? We'll go through all of yours. So we'll start with you, Dorian. Let's get through all of your games that you're currently playing.
Yeah, it's not a lot, so that's good. But I did start Deltarune a couple days ago,
Yes.
which I had no plans of starting Deltarune, if I'm being honest. But I found out recently that it is headlining Summer Games Done Quick. It is the final game that is being shown at that event, and missing that would tear me apart. I haven't missed a final event at a Games Done Quick speedrun in ages. So I was like, oh damn, I guess I got to kind of play this game now, huh? Because I planned to wait till it was all out, right?
Mhm.
Because they're releasing it in bite-sized chapters.
Yeah.
Chapters 1 through 4 are out right now, so that was disappointing. But yeah, so I've started that and I finished chapter 1 of that, and I was going to just kind of steamroll through that, and then we got the lovely surprise shadow drop announcement at the Dorito Popes show for the Liza P DLC Overture. I have become enraptured with that game. I think it's incredible. So I just kind of dumped Deltarune. It's the Toy Story meme where like, I'm not playing with you anymore with Deltarune, and jumped right into Liza P. And I played a few hours of that so far, and I'm absolutely adoring that, and I can't wait to play more. But that's it, actually. Just those 2 games right now. Oh, and actually, that's not true. I've got a long play of Persona 5 Royal replay going on Steam Deck, but I've been doing that since January. It's slow going. We just finished Futaba's Palace, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're pretty deep into that. That's good. Ryochi, what gaming plates do you currently have spinning?
Well, I'm actually this week have been on a kind of a immersive sim kick after
Nice.
the announcement of the Thief VR at the PlayStation State of Play. So I actually downloaded the original Thief. I've played it like a while back ago, but I never finished it. So I felt like maybe I'll actually finish it this time to actually before the VR game comes out. And then I also been playing this new indie immersive sim called Skin Deep. I think it was revealed a couple years ago, but it had like a trailer at the Game Awards last fall, where I noticed it, and it's a really cool. It's more like a bite-sized immersive sims, though. So there are like smaller missions, but all the core mechanics of the immersive sim genre is there. So it has been a positive surprise seeing like this indie take on this genre.
Cool, cool. Yeah, Thief VR was. I haven't been fully convinced to dive in and buy a VR unit yet. I see the potential, and I've played a little bit of VR too. But I will say that Thief VR is really cool idea. I think immersive sims in VR sounds really cool because I think it really taps into that level of interactivity that's
Yeah,
offered for
yeah.
VR.
So I've played some like stealth games in VR, mostly the Assassin's Creed one, Assassin's Creed Nexus, and that really showed me that a stealth game in VR is really cool when executed perfectly. Of course, we don't yet know if the VR will be actually good, but the promise is there definitely.
Yeah, for sure. That's exciting, and it's. I mean, if nothing else, it's cool to see a franchise revive like that. And hopefully, the game is good, and we see like a revival of that franchise, if not more
Yeah,
immersive
true.
Sims, which is good. So, awesome. Yeah, it's a good variety of games that everyone's playing. I recently finished a replay of Fury, which is a smaller boss rush game. Um, it's pretty short, and depending on how skilled you are, I would say like 6 hours roughly. I think there's 10 bosses. Um, but yeah, what the game offers is a really cool art style and a really awesome synth soundtrack. If you haven't played the game, you've probably heard like one or two tracks from the game before. Other than that, I played the demo for a game called Captain Blood. I believe this was a long ago abandoned project that got revived. But basically, what it is kind of the elevator pitch is it's a bit like a classic God of War game, like the old God of War trilogy games. But it's that sort of game, but with pirates. Yeah, I'll definitely keep an eye on that game. And then honestly, what's been taking up a lot of my time is Elden Ring Night Rain. Um,
Ooh.
and what I will say is that it really serves as a really good tutorial and a learning experience for how to play Souls games, especially if you're playing with someone who's very experienced at the game, which I am fortunate enough to be doing. So that's been the biggest impact for me. And just the game itself is very fun. I'm really not. I have little history with Souls games, and I'm not really a big rogue like light fan. I'm very picky with the ones that I like, but this is very. It's very fun. So yeah, that's basically what I've been playing. That's good. Yeah, we played. All three of us have a pretty good variety of games. The first thing that I wanted to start off with this game is I was curious about this because I think there was a wide range of opinions when it was revealed. If you guys can recall, what were your expectations going into this game? We'll start with you, Dorian.
I think when I had first heard about it, it was one of the, like, obviously, there's so many stories coming out every day of, oh, these former developers have left to form a new studio. So I'm sure somewhere at the back of my mind, I had heard that at some point. And to be honest with you, it's something I probably kind of ignored. I'm not the biggest, I apologize in advance, Ryochi, but I'm not the biggest Ubisoft fan. So when I heard, a couple Ubisoft devs are leaving to form their own studio, honestly, it probably wouldn't have even kind of hit my radar. Of course, but then they had that wonderful showing. I forget which event it was at. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it was at an Xbox show, was the first one, if I recall, that I remember kind of picking up on, and it looked incredible. Like, it almost looked too good to be true. Dare I say, it looked kind of fake. I was like, wow, this looks phenomenal visually. This looks amazing. This looks basically AAA. They're doing something really funky here with the combat. This is supposed to be turn-based, but it's kind of got that Paper Mario, Super Mario RPG vibe going to it, and which has always intrigued me. I love that style of RPG combat, and I've never understood why more games don't do that. Sea of Stars was a great one, and that did that, and that kind of scratched my itch on that style of game for a while. So I was wondering why there would be, or I thought that was great. So that intrigued me for sure. I thought my first impressions were that it looked great, looked stunning, and I was definitely excited to see more, if not a little bit, like I said, apprehensive, because it just kind of felt like, oh, is this too good to be true? Like, because this looks great. This is ticking off a lot of boxes for me.
Cool. And Ryoshi, what were your expectations going in?
Pretty similar to Dorian. Like definitely the same feeling that it looked almost too good based that for a studio that had no pedigree behind it. But definitely the combat was interesting. I haven't really played any of the other RPGs that use this like mix of like active mechanics in a turn-based system, so that looked really interesting. But what mostly struck me about the game was the fluidity of the menus. Like one thing like I love about Persona is how good the combat flows with the different menus and attacks. So the first trailer for Expedition definitely gave me the same feeling of how fluid the menus were in combat. So that was what struck me first. And I think like just little bit after the first trailer, they revealed a couple of the music tracks from the game, and that finally sold me. I'm a big fan of like video game music, and it immediately told me that they were doing something totally different with the music in this game. So that was the final hit that sold the game for me.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, it's good to hear. And you're reminding me again, it's an ongoing meme for whatever content I do. I always forget to brag about the music of the game. So I'll add a note here in the agenda to bring up the music again eventually because it deserves its plaudits. Yeah, I had similar reactions to what y'all cited. I remember hearing y'all talk about it made me recall when the game was revealed, and I recall, the kind of the production value was at the forefront in the beginning of the trailer, and I'm like, wow, this looks like a really like a game that Dorian that you would really like. But it's like really big production value, third person kind of over the shoulder. It kind of reminded you of almost like a PlayStation first party game.
Yeah.
But then when they went into the turn based, I'm like, oh, what is going on here? And then the menus like Ryochi said, it was like Persona. I'm like, what is happening? Like Dorian, you said it was like surreal. Like, is this a real game? Like, this isn't like some tech demo thing. This is like a real game that we're going to be able to play. And then they kept showing it, and it was just more and more convincing. And then I was talking with a friend, and he's like, "Are you looking at these reviews for?" I'm like, "No. What are they like 80? Like what are they 82, 83?" He's like, "No, they're like borderline 90 or something overall." I'm like, "Oh my god, it's so rare to have a game that so many people are excited for, and it really." I would say not only lives up to expectations, I would say that this game actually surpassed them and exceeded them, which in this day and age, in all the years that I've, followed games and been excited for games, it's such a pleasant surprise and really kind of like a sort of relief, sort of a jubilance and really a celebration of the industry and a success story, which we'll get right into it, boys. The first aspect of the game is kind of what I wanted to kind of a soft opening of the game itself is I wanted to talk about the opening and the setup of the game. It takes place in a land called Lumiere, and the premise of this is there is this yearly event called the Gommage, in which its literal meaning a gommage is I forgot to put it in my notes, but the literal meaning is like a clearing off of the surface of the skin to really clear off any bacteria or infections on the skin and to wipe it all away and clear it out. And in the case of this game,
it's a French word for like erasure, basically.
yes, yeah. Typically in
Today I
screensavers,
learned.
Today you learned. Yeah, yeah. I did. Once in a while, I do my own research on the internet. So it actually produces fruitful things. So yeah, in this case, the gommage is. It started off, I believe, with 100, right? Remind me, boys. Do you remember the like age of
Yeah,
one?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It
So
started
and
from
every year
100.
every year this supernatural being called the Paintress wipes away everyone at that age, and it counts down every year. So 99, 98, 97, until we get to 33, and it starts off you as a character named Gustav, who I believe is 32. So he basically has 1 year left, and he is walking his his I guess girlfriend, fiance, new wife, something to that effect. Um, and he's walking to the gommage, and if you didn't know, you'd be like, "What? What is this gommage?" It's they almost like a play it up as like a sort of older quinceañera, like in Hispanic culture. Like it's like, oh, it's a big life event, and I guess it sort of is. But the prologue of the game is ending with this year's gommage and his beloved. I believe her name is Sophia. I
Sophie.
believe Sophie. Yes, Sophie. Yeah, she gets gommage and wiped away. And I mean the entire sequence is hauntingly beautiful because everyone gets turned into rose petals, and then you, as you're walking through the town, you see all these rose petals and like, wow, why are they all here? And then when you see why, you're like, oh my goodness. Um, and so yeah, I guess we can just kind of talk about the prologue of the game. What were your guys' impressions playing through the prologue, if anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think what I first noticed, well, I have to, if just before, I know you said you added and we're going to talk about it in a bit, but the music during that part, when the gommage actually happens, is really haunting and beautiful. It was just, it still sticks with my head. Like that song kind of lives rent free there, and we'll play over and over again. So I love that song. To I have to bring this up because I think you know me. I'm the biggest fan of this television show in the world, but I got really big leftover vibes.
Oh, that's a good shout. That's a good shout. Yeah,
And
definitely.
you know how much I adore that piece of media. So when that happened, I'm just like, oh, I'm hooked. Like this has got me. Like that's all it took. But yeah, I really like that prologue, one thing I do really like about it that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that much, it really rewards people who actually take their time at the beginning of that prologue and walk around and talk to people and kind of just get used to the situation and kind of what's going on there. There's lots of activities you can do before you kind of hit that moment. I think I ended up spending like an hour and a half just kind of walking around, exploring, talking to people before that hit. And I watched a couple of streamers who I won't name, but they kind of just charge straight through right to that thing. And I don't think it hits as hard if you do that. So it really does reward it, I think, if you stick around and just kind of wander around and talk to people. And I really do appreciate that about it.
Yeah, I mean, you can actually pick up some valuable collectibles. I think you can. There's one or two additional combat opponents as well. I think I missed one of them, but yeah, I
Yeah,
think
there
my
is a
pro.
mime.
Yeah, we'll get to those ungodly horrors later. Um, I think my prologue time was like 48 minutes, something like that, and I did like almost all of it. But yeah, those are good shouts. Ryochi, what were your impressions kind of starting out the game?
Yeah, once again, the music, when the Lumiere track hit, like immediately in the
Yeah.
beginning when you watch Gustav at the balcony throwing the rock and Mile comes up, that music like instantly captured me. And right from the beginning in their like conversation between Gustav and Mile, I love that there wasn't this like big info dump about the gommage instantly. So
Yeah.
you gather like bits and pieces of the world building as you talk to the different people at this like weird to say, but celebration. So you kind of like piece it together yourself that what this gommage is and what this world is like. But for me the about the prologue is the connection between Gustav and Sophie, because there is clearly a lot of history between them, that they were a couple. I'm not sure if they were even married, but the reason they broke up was that Gustav wanted children and Sophie didn't want children, and that was the rift between them that caused them to break up. And the game never like blatantly tells you that. It all comes from the different small discussions with the NPCs around the world, around the town. So like that struck me like, wow, this game is not afraid to like make you think for yourself, and not just do a 30-minute lore dump at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good shout. I think just due to the nature of their circumstances, it really is like a small knit community. Everyone kind of knows everyone. Like it leads to like gossiping, like who's with who, and who are you betrothed to, or who's your potential mates, and yeah, that was a really good. It was a really good introduction to the world, the character dynamics, um, and we'll go. I think we'll go more into this later, but the the circumstances of the game really make you interested in every single character that you meet because you want to get their thoughts and their perspective on the kind of the extraordinary goings on that everyone is really thrust into and going through together. So
It's a fascinating world that they set
yeah,
up like right from the start. Like you really want to dig in and learn more about what's going on there. At least I did.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah, for sure.
thematically it makes you think about like the concept of like children having to grow up earlier because they know they won't have that many years left. So that like it creates this like unnerving atmosphere to the whole like society of this world, which is like really really cool.
Yeah, despite the really gorgeous art design, it really adds a layer of um, heightened urgency throughout
Mm.
everyone. So yeah, one thing I did had to kind of uh, a little the way my goofy brain works sometimes is it was funny that it was former Ubisoft devs and you start out as like on a rooftop in like a French sort of city. I was like, oh, some things like never really change. It's like Assassin's Creed when you're like, going from rooftop to rooftop and doing like a sort of parkour. So I had to kind of chuckle at that as well.
Yeah, I was trying to find the tower to activate the map, but it wasn't there.
Yeah, and the
So
camera spins around. Yeah, you're in Lumiere's. No, yeah, summon an eagle and stuff. No, that was funny. And the Dorian, you mentioned this as well. Is that Gomage moment? Even though I kind of knew the premise through like promos and marketing and trailers and stuff, it was not any less effective. I think I don't know of anyone that finished a prologue and was like, yeah, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna drop this game. I like I'm sorry if you weren't into the game, or at least wanting to continue after that. I don't know really what to do for you. So
yeah, that's one of
um,
the strongest prologues I think I've ever played in
yeah.
a video game. Certainly since Final Fantasy 16, which I'm a super fan of. But that prologue really hooked me in.
Oh yeah,
This was
yeah,
that quality. Like it's an incredible prologue. They could have demoed out that prologue and sold like another 100,000 copies. I think
yeah. I
it's
mean,
great.
you mentioned Final Fantasy 16. They could have done that, right? Because I think that's what the demo for 16 was that prologue.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, crazy. So awesome. I think what I wanted to do is I wanted to break it up a little bit before we get into like the really heavy stuff about like the story and the characters and themes. I wanted to really talk about the combat and the kind of the little goofy sub message I have is the combat is a fairy tale for the ages, and because the combat really is, even though it is um, broadly a turn-based game, it's really, and there is a dodge mechanic. You really should focus on parrying to get the most out of the combat. And while we're here too, is we can also kind of talk about the world and the overworld as well with the combat. So to give you a quick rundown, and I'll let the boys take it away from here. It is primarily a turn-based game. There are no random encounters, so you're able to run around overworld enemies. There is a flee mechanic, so even if you somehow get caught into a battle you don't want to, you can flee. More often than not, there's some you can't flee a boss battle, for example. But and then once you get into combat, there's real-time dodge and parry mechanics within combat. And as far as customizing your characters, there are these things called pictos, which are various boosts to characters. They come in many forms. Some are like a boost to your overall luminous, which are basically your the value of um, the basically the bonus points for your character's boosts, and you can assign 3 pictos to every character. And once you win 4 battles with the pictos assigned to the character, they become luminous, which means they can be assigned to any character in your party. Um, and there are a vast number of them that you can use to customize characters and do various builds with various characters. And each character has their own unique sets of weapons. So you're not going to have to worry about, oh, which weapon is best for which character. When you get a weapon, you'll only, I'm almost positive, you'll only be able to assign it to a specific character. Um, and then the other last bit I wanted to highlight at a very high level, let you guys kind of dive in. I think you guys, both of you are more experienced with turn based games than I am, but I liked how each character had their own unique spin on stacking damage. So it can be like, you could do it like based on the amount of parries that they have, or like an elemental stack, or kind of like a combo stack based on their base attack, or there's also a free aim shot which you can use to add an elemental attack, or you can hit an enemy's weak point. So I kind of rambled at a very high level about the combat. Ryochi, let's start with you. Where did you want to start with the combat and kind of the overworld itself? Fire, go off.
Yeah, the combat was definitely the big highlight for me. I do love my like turn-based RPGs, but this felt so like this game is so like inspired by classic JRPGs, but I feel like they do so much things differently that it starts to feel like its own thing, just like with the parries and dodges and stuff like that. Um, I'm not sure what difficulty. I think you guys both play on the normal difficulty?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
was normal.
I played on normal. I didn't want to tempt fate with hard, and I didn't want to be a little baby bottle gamer and do the easy. So yeah, I stuck with
Okay.
hard, medium the whole way.
Yeah. So I played with the expert mode, which I think is interesting because the expert mode is making you use the parries and dodges so much more efficiently. Because if you miss a parry or dodge, you are almost instantly dead because
Yeah.
it's really punishing. So that was an interesting take because it made me use less like normal JRPG strategies with like buffs and debuffs and stuff like that. It made me like solely focus on the parrying, more akin to like a Souls game, for example.
Mhm.
So so it was like a very different experience from the normal turn based for me. I think if you play it on a lower difficulty, then those like different ability buffs and debuffs and health management and stuff like that becomes more common. But the expert difficulty definitely made you like really focus on getting those parry timings right. And one thing I do want to mention about the parries is that I kind of found the parries easier than the dodges because the dodging animation is so long that I felt like the quick parry made like more sense to my brain. So I just like fully focused on parrying the whole game.
Yeah, I get that. It took me a minute to get the kind of the rules of parrying down, because with parries, I'm so used to having to parry at the very last instant, where I think in this game you really had to parry at the start of the enemy's attack animation. A lot of times there would be like a visual trigger, like a glint or something. Sometimes there wouldn't be that I could see, but I had to constantly remind myself, okay, you have to do it sort of early, like at the very start of their attack, not at the very end, like maybe like a more demanding game, if you will. So it's kind of like learning the language.
Yeah. I feel like the big problem with the parries is the tells of the enemies are kind of muddled.
Yeah.
Like there isn't a clear audio or visual cue for the parry, so you kind of just have to learn each enemy and their timings, which could sound like annoying, but I kind of love the challenge about it.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I will say, this isn't really a knock on the game, is that I never really found myself using items during battle. Maybe that's just because I played on normal. I don't know, but they had those. What are they called? The chromium elixirs that revives, like fully revives and heals everyone in the party. I like hardly ever use those um, in battle. But
I used
another,
it pretty often, so I
did
guess I'm
you?
just bad.
Okay. Yeah. See, I never think I'm that good at games. I don't know. Maybe I just like I had a good build where like we'll go more into this, but I had like a really good healer that was able to like res and revive or like heal multiple characters at once. So I kind of focused on keeping them alive. But another aspect of the parrying is I'm trying to get the name of the kind of the mechanic down. What are the points that you accrue during battle calls? I forget those. Do you guys remember? I'm drawing a brain fart. That blue bar that you accumulate during battle.
Oh, AP.
Is it called AP? Yeah. So the parry basically increases your AP, which I think maxes out at 9 total.
Yeah.
So that's primarily why you should parry, because it gives you each parry gives you an attack point for the most part. But Dorian, what did you what was really the highlight of the combat for you?
Well, it's funny. I actually have on my notes here that life works in a funny way, because if I had played this game before I did my little Souls binge this year, specifically Sekiro, I I think it might have gone a little bit differently for me, honestly. But just lining up Sekiro into this game, which Sekiro is such a parry heavy game. That's all you're doing in Sekiro is parrying for the most part. Into this, it just worked out perfectly for me, and I slid right into the normal difficulty. And I said, I've been using all these items. Well, part of it was me, like I was going to areas that I shouldn't go to, fighting bosses early that I really shouldn't fight, and spending a lot of time on some really challenging early bosses that I basically was getting one shot if I missed a parry, and I needed to revive myself. So that's why I was doing a lot of that. But it was so much fun. Like I enjoyed doing that so much. I do have to give a massive, massive shout out to Ryochi though for teaching me the Picto system during my stream. Because if he didn't, I might have been like Straw Hat and just played the entire game without knowing how it works. I do think that is one area of criticism I have. I wish they were a little bit more clear, specifically with how that system works, because there's so many people I know that just miss that completely. Basically, when you earn the 4 points, it can assign it to anyone. The menu to get there, I think, is a little bit clunky, and I wish there was like, I wish they kind of forced you to go there. It was like, here you go there now and do this. But I got there eventually thanks to Ryochi, so I was able to do it. The combat itself is super thrilling and exciting. I love the parrying. I think the parrying is great. I do wish there was a bit more use for the dodge at the end of the day. Like I wish there were some attacks maybe you only could dodge, because dodge became nearly useless for me by the end of the game. I think the only attack I would consistently dodge was that mime hammer attack, because I could never get the damn timing of it down. Shout out that
uh,
attack.
yeah.
But otherwise, I would parry everything. Like I was just like, no, we're parrying, and if I can't parry, then we'll die and we'll try again. Because you get such, especially if you have the right builds, your parrying would go off. Like if you got all of it. Like I know there was basically a mechanic where if they do a team attack and you parry every attack, then basically it's like Expedition 33 counters, and you get this cool like you
Yeah.
know. I don't want to say Avengers like, but a big soy moment
Yeah.
where all three of you counter the attack, and it does massive, massive damage. So always worth it to parry for sure. But yeah, no, I had a great time with the combat in this game. It was definitely surprising how deep parts of it were. As somebody like, you mentioned earlier that like, me and Ryochi are big turn-based guys, and that's true. But the big difference between us is I play turn-based games on easy for the most part. I don't want to be challenged by them. Like, you could ask Ryochi about my Trails gameplay and how I just charge through those. It's not a challenge for me. But this game, I was like, oh, there's no way I'm playing this on easy. This is fun, and I almost do kind of wish I played it on an expert, because by the end of the game, it was too easy for me.
Yeah, it's some things that stood out from where you were talking about the combat is that Yeah, I mean, you theoretically, if you're good at parrying, you could theoretically beat any enemy, right? Just based on just parrying their attacks or blocking, from what I recall.
Yeah, I've seen some people do like the end game bosses like in the middle of the game. It takes them like 40 minutes to an hour and do like hundreds of parries, but it's possible.
Yeah, yeah. One boss, I forget which boss it was. I had a rough go with it, and that took me, I think, 38 minutes because I didn't have the right elements against him. So I wasn't doing like the optimal amount of damage, and I wasn't really threatened. I had all of their moves down, so I was almost like in a daze, just parrying over and over and over again all their attacks. So yeah, yeah, you theoretically could just you could fight any boss anywhere in the overworld. If you try to go to an area, it'll and you're under level. The game tells you you're under leveled. It'll have the kind of the outline of the entrance highlighted in red, and it'll say danger. So it'll kind of warn
Yeah.
you that, hey, are there any enemies here? You're going to be technically under leveled for them, but I mean, you could theoretically sort of brute force your way through parrying skill.
Yeah,
Um,
I kind of wanted to do more like harder bosses early on, but the
yep.
only thing that was like a problem with that is the dumb retry mechanic because there isn't like a straight like retry fight button after you lose, but you have to like reload a save and then do the big walk back to a boss. So that's like my only big gripe with the game, because if it had like a retry fight button, I would have like loved to do like harder bosses early on and just like get those timings right, but the walk back was so painfully slow every time.
So I 100% agree with that, but I actually found pretty early on a glitch with that, where basically if you equip or unequip and then equip a weapon, it auto saves wherever you are. So
Oh
that
yeah, yeah,
eliminated
yeah, yeah.
that eliminated the run back for me. So I that's why I tried. I agree. If I had to do like a big giant walk back every time, that reminds me of Dark Souls. I'm not doing that. But because of that glitch, I could just kind of equip the weapon. It would save me like literally seconds away from that boss. So I still would have liked a retry button. I think that's something that just would have been easy and they should have done. But it was like okay, load the save, 1 second walk. We could do that.
Yeah, it's those little. I appreciate you guys pointing out those little quality of life things, because that's something that I find myself really. I don't want to say nitpicking, but it's stuff that I like. I notice in games. It's like if I was playing the game or I was testing it, I would really. I tend to hyper focus on those quality of life things, um, which is good. I think another aspect that you mentioned too, Dorian, is that kind of the kind of the obsolescence of the traditional dodge, in that there's a few other mechanics in addition to the standard parry. Is you have a counter which you can trigger based on pictos, and you also have a gradient counter, which is basically a very special type of attack, which visually was really cool because the screen goes black and white. So it's really like it's kind of triggering that these attacks from these enemies are so powerful that it sucks out all of the color and vibrancy from the world, which I think is really cool. And you have to hit. I think it's right trigger is the counter button for those gradient attacks, and you basically soak up that attack and counter it against the enemy. And then another one is the jump attack, which is another special attack with a sort of like yellow visual trigger. And I found myself using those, even those, much more than the standard dodge mechanic as well. When countering both of those was very satisfying as well. So
Yeah, the
um,
jump attack was weird because like that is the only one that has a like a clear visual cue
yeah,
for the attack, and even the timing is sort of correct. Like
yeah,
if you see the yellow attack, you almost can jump immediately, and
yeah,
that's weird because none of the other attacks are like the cues are timed. Like even the gradient counter, like when you see the gradient like black and white, it's not immediately when you need to click the button, but
yeah.
it's a different timing for every enemy. So that jump effect was weird because I don't know why they had like a visual clue for that.
Yeah, I consistently found the jump attacks to be the easiest um, for me. They were pretty much like you mentioned. They're like kind of the most standard, easiest to dodge. Um, so something else, yeah, with the combat and the Pictos, there were so many of them that, in a good way, I found myself probably 2 or 3 times throughout the game just really stopped, taking time to stop for a moment and re-examining all of my various characters' builds to see what I wanted to do with each of them. So, like Lune, for example, she ended up being like a god tier healer for me. She was kind of like my de facto MVP. She was kind of like a in the seven remix series. She was kind of like the Aerith for me. She was just like the clutch support character, the healer. She didn't really I didn't really rely on her for damage that much. She would do some elemental stacking, and she was able to maybe occasionally do her really one big attack that had an elemental advantage on an enemy. But for the most part, she was like the the healing goddess, if you will, for me. And like Mael was the parry and counter maven, so she was like the little kind of the little engine kid for that. I have a kind of a weird question for each of you. This is my, again, my weird brain. Did any of the characters for you, kind of based on their animations or their build, like their kind of like physical stature, did you find any of them easier to kind of parry or counter for you? So for like, for example, I found Monoko one of the easiest to parry with. I don't know why. Maybe it was because of his build, like the way he looks on screen, or his weapon, or what have you. Or did any of the specific characters vibe with either of you in terms of parrying or countering?
That's an interesting point. I didn't really think about it, but I would say yes. I feel like Mile, or actually like all of the girls for me, because they're like, well, their models are smaller, so
Yeah.
they take less space from the enemy. Like I'm so focused on the enemy animations, so I guess like Mile was easiest to counter with or parry with, but no, it's not a like a big difference, definitely, but now that you said it, yeah.
Yeah, it's not something I really noticed during my gameplay through of it. I think I don't think that was an issue for me. I think consistently, like I would just be like, okay, if I dropped a parry, it would be randomly on one of the three characters. So I don't feel like that was a problem for me, but I'd have to go back and re-examine it and actually play it. There's so much end game content in that game I do want to get back to, so I'll do it and I'll let you know.
Yeah, they're really. That was one of the. Again, I don't want to be. That's not really negative at all. I found. I think I was around level 60 at the end of like the main game, and I still found myself seeing the danger icon for some of the areas that I wanted to go back to, but yet I felt overpowered by the end of the main game. So I don't know if that was the game telling me that there really is post game that's meant to be post game content. Because I ended up grinding a lot at the sort of the endless, I forget what it's called, the endless tower area, where it's basically just a series of combat trials, which got pretty insane. I think I got to like level 4 um, for that. So I did a lot of combat challenges. Um, who were who were some of your standout characters in combat? Dorian, we'll go with you first.
Oh, well, I kind of stuck to the same party for most of the game, if I'm being honest. I did try to play around with the new people that got introduced. For me, though, my favorite to play with was just Mael. She's such a little nuke bomb. Like
Yeah,
the things you can do with her parries, and just the insane amount of damage you can do with her once you get into her. I think it's called Virtuo Stance, I believe,
yeah,
which is basically her attack does 200% damage. And especially later on in the game, you get the Pictos that just removes the cap, because there is like what is it, 99,999 cap, or I believe, of damage, and it just completely removes that and lets you just start nuking enemies, which is great. So she was definitely my big damage dealer throughout most of the game. I enjoy playing with her, and then kind of everyone else was kind of not like they could do damage, but like I would have Lune kind of like, she was also healing for me, but she could also kind of set her up and kind of get her in position. But more so, that's what I used Gustav and later on Verso for, was kind of marking the enemy, getting it ready for Mael's big attack. So it was mostly Mael for me, but I did try some with oh, I'm drawing a blank. What's the other girl's name? Sorry.
CL,
CL.
CL, CL. Yeah,
CL, thank you.
yeah.
I did try her. The card system seemed interesting. I did like what they were doing with that. If I was ever to do another playthrough, or even in New Game Plus, or sorry, in the post game stuff, I'd probably try to use her a bit more. Monaco, very interesting. I've never been a giant fan of the whole, they need to be in your party to learn an attack mechanic thing. And then the wheel thing kind of seemed a little RNG-ish to me. So I was like, I don't know about this. I love the character, but the actual combat of him didn't really jive with my playstyle. So,
Okay. Ryochi, what about you?
I mostly played with the girl squad, Mile, Ciel, and Lune.
Nice.
Mile it was the big damage dealer, especially towards the later game.
Yeah.
Lune, like I said before, playing on expert, I found very little use in healing, so I just
Really
used the
interesting.
I just used the when I needed. I had enough to use just the items that recharge. So Lune was also just like a big damage nuke for me. I think she has for early game she has like really good attacks because they are powerful and hit multiple times. So when you had that 999 damage cap, you could easily hit that and get extra damage with Lune.
Yeah.
And then CL was my like support character. Like she was the one that was marking enemies, and she has the rush ability that gives you rush, which is like the only like status effect I really used during the game. So she was definitely like the support character for me. But I did like her like the card system. I think that's the like most interesting character gimmick, and I do want to say that the character gimmicks overall were like really cool. That every character had their own like playstyle that you could like play with. But yeah, those three were my favorites. Gustav and Verso were really good as well, but I really didn't like Monaco. I don't really like those blue mage style characters that copy enemy abilities. That's just something I'm not like interested in. So unfortunately, he was like bench constantly in my party.
Okay. That's interesting. What makes it extra interesting is like Monaco was one of my big damage dealers, oddly enough. Probably not coincidence. I think his system, Mael system, and Lune system were the ones that I feel like I got the most familiar with and got down. So coincidentally, those are probably my three favorites overall. Um, Lune was my big, as I said earlier, she was like my healing goddess. Her elemental system was great because there were some perks where if you used like if your ability used too specific of this element, you could immediately go again, or it would like auto heal a teammate or teammates. And then with Mael and Monaco, they both had shield breaking abilities. So if one enemy shielded like everyone in the enemy party, they would have an ability to either, if they broke an enemy single shield, it would add an attack point to them, or they were able to break all of the enemy shields at once. So I found both of them to be super useful as attackers for breaking shields. And then Monoko, just I don't know if just because of his weapon choice or his build that I had built out, he was doing massive amounts of damage for me by the end. What did you both think of? I think you both mentioned this. What did you both think of that 9999 cap? Because I was so confused at the beginning. I was like, why is it only doing up to 9999? Like, are we going to eventually hit a level to where it does it? And then when I got that picto for the goes beyond the 9999 cap, I'm like, oh, okay. I wasn't like crazy about it, but at least there was some type of built-in mechanic to go beyond that. What did you both think of that?
Well,
it feels like they might have done that just to like to balance the game almost.
Yeah.
Because like I would have been before that point, I think, going way past that.
Yeah.
So that was my assumption to it. I think they probably could have done that a better way. I agree. But at least like you said, I was like, okay, at least they're removing that, because that was definitely, it was just dragging fights out longer than it needed to. And once that kind of shackle was free, it was like, oh, this feels great.
yeah, the damage cap is definitely a very classic JRPG thing, so it didn't
Okay.
like surprise me, but it's understandable if you're not that familiar that with those games as much. There's like many classic RPGs have that like damage cap system, and some games do have the similar pick those style that at some point you can like go above it. So that I really liked that there was a damage cap, and after it was removed, the game kind of broke for me because
Yeah.
I'm a type of person who loves to like do all the content before ending the game. So when that act 3 opens up and you get the damage cap removed, I just went around and did everything in the world. So I was at like level 95 when I went to the final dungeon,
God.
and I killed the final boss with one basic attack.
Yeah, even like I said, I'm not I wasn't I don't consider myself particularly good. I was like I was between like level 59 and 62 of my party, and I had really little effort. I think I maybe like needed us 2 attempts at level 6. And again, I don't consider myself like especially like precise with my builds and everything. But yeah, so knowing you got to like level 95 with how experienced you are, I can't imagine. It's just yeah, it was stupid. I think what was I going to say? I think another quality of life is I would have liked. I think you this kind of maybe expands upon what we mentioned earlier with quick travel back to fights. Is I would have liked maybe marking where like all the mimes are because mimes are just inherently terrifying. They're just ungodly, demonic, satanic creatures, and so beating them was like really satisfying. So I would have liked like hey marking like all the mimes on the map if you wanted to be like completionist about it and like extra satisfying beating their brains in. That would have been really satisfying as well. There was one other aspect that I wanted to touch upon that one of you mentioned, but I'm just drawing a brain fart right now.
Well,
Um,
I'm gonna say about the mimes. The mimes were disappointing to me, to be honest,
yeah,
because I wanted them to have more attacks, like
they were very
because
simple. They were like drunkenly swinging at you. All of them were kind of the
yeah,
same, weren't they? Yeah,
they had 2 attacks. Every mime had 2 attacks. So after a few of them, you learn the timing, or at least
yeah,
I did. So they got a little very boring towards the end of the game,
yeah.
uh, because like other bosses have so many attacks, like so many different attacks. So it took me like multiple times to actually learn all of them. I wanted to especially shout out the petanques, the treasure bosses, which had their own
Oh, yes, yes,
own
yes, yes,
own, own
yes.
own
Yeah,
gimmicks every time. So like those were like really cool for me.
yeah. They're fleeing. They all had that fleeing mechanic, right? I think I fought like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, I think
The
so.
time fleeing. Yeah, that was honestly more stressful than fighting like story bosses and stuff. We'll talk about kind of big story bosses in a moment, but Dorian, was kind of in the overworld and other enemies that stood out to you aside from story bosses. Were there any that like that were especially memorable or extra antagonizing for you?
Well, I'll just say I love the mimes personally. I thought they were really cool. Now, I did have the disadvantage of being stupid and never being able to get the timing down, so that kept it fresh for me. But it was kind of one of those things where it felt like a recurring gag. Like you like there was one part like which it was the really amazing boss fight. I forget the name of it. The
All of
dancing
them.
one.
All of them.
Yeah,
Oh,
fair enough. But
the dancing one,
uh,
the one with like the mirrors, I think.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
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 she's incredible. But
beautiful.
that whole dungeon was really great. Like I love that dungeon, and I was exploring that dungeon, and there's like kind of this dark cavern. I go around the corner, and the mime jump scared
Yep.
me. I was like, oh
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Jesus
Yep. 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 Scared the yeah. I was,
Christ!
yeah. No. I did a yeah. I should have been on stream. I did. I did like nope. 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 I'm going. Nope. I'm out of here. Nope.
So I
They knew.
appreciate the
They knew that
placement.
too. Yeah. They knew. Oh
Yeah,
my
so
god. Yeah.
I
They knew.
appreciate the placement of some of those mimes. I
Yeah.
thought they kind of nailed that part really well, and I enjoyed whenever I came across one. Plus, the music was such a bop for them. Like
Oh yeah.
that one.
It was extremely French,
Yes,
even by this game standards.
yeah, it's still stuck in my head. If I knew I was going into a mine fight, I tried to put everyone in their baguette uniforms and then go into it. So that was fun. In terms of other enemies, though, I'm like obviously that one boss was spectacular. Like it's probably one of my favorites in the game. But you could say that for all the bosses. I think all the bosses were really good.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of just the really cool looking like chromatic enemies They have a lot of neat designs to them. There's that one that's in the middle of the ocean, Sprong, I think is his name.
Strong, yeah.
Sprong, yeah. I loved him because he's just chilling there out in the middle of the ocean. I'm like, oh, let's go try to fight this guy, and he just nuked me. I'm like, okay, maybe
Yeah,
not
I
yet.
love that his attacks are just like swiping at you, like get out of here, you little bug. It's like swiping
Yeah,
at a
yeah.
bug,
So I'm
right?
like, all right, that's a post game one, and I didn't actually do a lot of post game content. Like I said, I do want to go back, but one of the things I did do was go back and beat Sprong. So like, screw you, man.
Yeah, it's always satisfying, regardless of the genre or like the structure of the game, to get wiped by a boss and then eventually go back, um, kind of go back and really dominate them. It's extra like with the mimes or some of the other like overworld um, enemies as well. Speaking of the overworld, there were actually some little kind of side puzzle traversal challenges. How much of that stuff did you guys explore?
Everything. I
Everything?
I
Yeah,
I
I
I
tried to
I
do everything.
I love them, like the only up style platform section
Yeah.
infuriated me. But I want to say a big you to the volleyball.
Oh, that final one. Oh my god.
The volleyball, I didn't have that much trouble with because I got the cadence down. The
The first two were
traversal,
fine. That was at that final one that like you had to do. It was like it had like 15 health or something like that. I think
oh
it
yeah,
took me.
yeah, yeah.
I think it took me like nearly an hour. I was like, this is stupid. Excuse my language. This is stupid.
The volleyball, I forget. I kind of learned, like these mini games, you kind of learn the trick of the mechanics. I forget how I learned to. I don't want to say cheese it or something, but there was a way I was able to do it like really, really easily. I think what I had to do for the volleyball is I stood all the way back. I think is what I did, and that made it really easy. The traversal, I found. How many were there? There were two traversal challenges. I know there was that epic one that everyone was sending clips of them failing. That really, really big one. I think I did that in
Like
like
the
two.
climbing one.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, the climbing. Yeah, the climbing
Okay,
traversal
yeah, yeah.
challenge. The really big one that everyone was failing on and sending clips on Twitter. I think I did that in like two, maybe three attempts. The
Yeah,
one
it
that
took me way
really
more than
annoyed
that.
me was the one where you had to escape the downward lights to get up to the top of the top of like the building or the structure. Did you guys get that one?
Yeah,
Kind of
the
the
what the like fireballs were
That's the one that gave me
dropping. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the one that gave me the fits. Oh my god, I was like borderline raging. I'm like, what am I doing? But yeah, I mean, those side again, Ryochi, I'm sure Addy too. That's typical JRPG stuff, right? It's kind of like stop and do more whimsical mini game stuff. That's like a JRPG trope as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, depending on the game. I feel like these were more like, wait, we have like these like climbing mechanics in the game, and
Yeah,
they are kind of jank. So I feel like they played into them being bad.
yeah,
So it caused a similar frustration that these like rage games like Only Up and Getting Over with
yeah.
cause in people. So I feel like that wasn't like an intentional choice, that they were infuriating because the mechanics are not that good.
Yeah, yeah, and it was funny too. Again, they understood and they played into it because when you're doing these climbing traversal challenges, it was always some random structure. Like it would be like a chair, and then you go up to like a piece of a architecture, like an old like a piece of an old column, or like I don't know, some other chunk of a structure. So you were just climbing on these random assets that I think the developers probably just drew from their kind of their library of assets and broke them apart and just threw them on this traversal challenge. Which is again, it's very funny. The developers always know. Addy, did you want to, or Dorian, did you want to talk more about kind of the side activities? What stood out to you? Highlighted good and bad, frustrating, whatever you.
Yeah, they're fun. They were good little side excursions. Like every time I would run across one, I'd be like, okay, let's do this, and I would spend the time and do it. The beach vibe is really cool, and you didn't even usually get the like. I mean, well, depending on what your idea of a good prize was or reward, I should say. You didn't really get the best rewards, but I know some people love the bikini for Monaco. So maybe that's your god tier reward right there. But yeah, stuff like that's always fun. I think to break up the game and inject a little bit of life into it. And the music in those areas, again, music evergreen, but the music in those areas was great. So I didn't have a problem with those. Some of them were frustrating. Like I said, that final level of the volleyball one took me forever. The climbing one specifically, also, you said you did it in like 3 or 4 attempts. I think I did it in like 30 or 40 attempts. It drove me kind of nuts, but I mean, I had fun with it. Like it was a good time.
Yeah, I think. in terms of the side activities in the overworld, there were these some really small side areas that were like fixed cameras, and it was almost
Yeah, you
driving
got
me
music.
insane. It was just one item that you would go in there and pick up, and I'm like, is there anything else that we're supposed to do? I think there would maybe be like a collectible, and there would be like a note you could probably pick up and read. But did you guys came across those, right? Those kind of
Yeah, I
like
think it was just music in most of those areas. Like you'd get like a record to play
yeah.
back at camp, and I don't know. I thought it was just a way to pick up an item and stuff like that. I was kind of relieved actually whenever I ran into one of those areas because I'm like, oh, okay, good, because like this game's already long and like there's so much content in it. So I'm like, I could just scoop in, grab the item, and get out. It's not a whole nother dungeon to explore.
Yeah, that's true. It could be a little bit off-putting at times. I was kind of like walking around for a minute, like, is that it? Making sure, and like, yeah. So there were some other big side areas that were a pleasant surprise too, because the game is pretty linear. Like it kind of sets you on a beat to beat track of areas that you go to, which I did throughout like probably like 2/3 of the game. I pretty much just mainlined it, and then I went back. When I got to the Cyrene boss, I was under leveled, so it kind of forced me to go back to these other areas and really explore. Real Chief, in terms of I guess for both of you, what were some of the side area, really any areas that stuck out to you in terms of like the environment?
Well, the environments for like whole game were really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I actually like the small like one item areas because they were visually very striking.
hmm
Um, Out of the other like bigger dungeons, I feel like there were no like big highlights for me. Maybe the old Lumiere was like visually very striking when it was like mostly black and white, and there were these like glowing swords all around. That was like visually really cool. And I'm not gonna spoil the end game stuff because you guys haven't even played them, but there are two dungeons and boss fights in the end game that are really cool, like both visually and for story purposes. But I don't want to spoil them because they're like really cool surprises for discover.
Dorian, what about you? Are there any specific environments that stood out to you? I mean, like, all the environments are just really awe-inspiring.
I think I the only like the environments are all really pretty looking. Like it felt like I think one of my minor nitpicks with the game here was a lot of it, like in certain areas, would look similar to me.
Yes.
So I do wish there was like that sort of mini map. I've said that before, so I could kind of know where I was going because I'm very directionally lost a lot of the times. So I do appreciate the choice not to do a map. So you have to explore for yourself. It's just things looked a little bit too samey for me. They're beautiful, absolutely beautiful, but in some environments, I kind of felt that it was always a little bit too samey for me. So I kind of need
Yeah.
to. I turn myself around a lot. Let's put it that way.
I
But no,
I no, go ahead.
no, you're good.
I was gonna say, I totally echo that. Um, the environments were so detailed and gorgeous, and I don't know, intense is kind of maybe a negative word, but they were so visually stimulating that I agree with you. I found myself getting turned around a little bit at times because it was hard to tell like where the exact traversal paths were, if that makes sense. Um, Again, it's almost like the environment designers flexed a little bit too hard at times to where the level designers really couldn't keep up. I think that so not really the main level designers, but kind of the visual designers, the visual language. Like sometimes it would be clear about where to go, and other times it was like, oh, you have to grab onto this wall grab and climb up, or you could walk this way and go down this path. It definitely could be a little bit of an annoyance at times. There was one area I'm trying to look it up right now as I speak. Is this it? Let me double check. I forget the name of it. It was like a white and yellow area. I think it was a side optional area. I am trying to find
Oh,
it.
where you're like going down into the, you kind of have to jump down to get to those platforms or whatever. Like
I
there's
think.
I think I know the area you're talking about because you have to activate like the statue or whatever. There's three of them.
Yes, I think so.
Because I never did finish that, but I did do two of them.
Yeah, is it the Lost Woods? I'm like scrolling it now. Trying to
You mean the larger dungeon, like optional dungeon?
Yeah, it was like white and yellow. Is it called?
Was it the Yellow Harvest?
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of a
It's
different area.
Yellow Harvest. That would make sense, right? Is
I,
it? I'm looking
I
at.
was thinking of a
Okay, there we
black and
are.
white area.
Yeah, I think it was yellow. Yeah, it was Yellow Harvest. Yeah, that's a side optional area. That was. It's like a first impression thing when you first go in there. I'm like, oh man, and the um the underwater area as well, being like the second main area that you go to. I'm like, oh my god, man, they're just flexing right from the gate. I mean, the first wooded area is that's another thing too is when you go through the horror of like chapter one, it's like this. We'll get more into it, but it's like the Saving Private Ryan beach landing, like horrifying situation, and you go into this first wooded area. It's just absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. It's like, oh man, this is just again, it kind of carries on with the rest of the game. It's so hauntingly beautiful in so many respects. That yeah, that's what really stood out to me. Old Lumiere as well, like Ryochi, you mentioned that. Stonewave Cliffs. I mean, it was beautiful. I wasn't crazy about the overall area. Traversing it was a little bit um, annoying at times to me. It's always kind of I'm always kind of conflicted because everything is so beautiful that just you kind of be conflicted like, oh, this isn't the best to move around in. But no, yeah, I think those are kind of really what stood out to me in terms of areas and environment design. So to kind of loop back around to the combat, what were two or three of your favorite boss fights? Yes, main story bosses.
Main story bosses. I gotta shout out the first one because that was the one where the game clicked for me.
So
I don't remember.
evoke,
Yeah,
I think.
evoke in the
Yeah,
first forest.
yeah.
Um, then it was the Go Blue in the sea place because of the music, not
Yeah,
necessarily the fight, but the music
yeah,
was like insanely good. When that techno track hits, it's like
yeah.
such a hype moment. And then mm, the later fights are cool, but I'm trying to think like what was like mechanically but the most interesting. I think it was the first Renoir fight. Not the first, but the one before the paintress in the monolith, like where
Oh, where he
at
summons the wolf in the second
yeah,
phase.
yeah, the Wolf
Yeah,
of
that was
Wine or
cool.
whatever.
Yeah.
Like that fight stuck with me not only because it was like emotionally charged, but it was probably the most difficult fight for me because he had so many different attacks. I think I counted like 11 or 12 different attacks that he has during the fight, which
Mhm.
was like insane because once I started to get a hang of like certain attacks, then he brought back one of the older attacks, and I was like totally dumbfounded at that point. So I
Yeah.
think I had to do that like maybe 10 times before I could beat him, which is like
Okay.
insane. I wouldn't say like I was watching Addy fight that boss, and you didn't even see half the attacks.
Oh, so
uh,
it's like distinctly different in just even in
yeah,
the
yeah,
amount of attacks and difficulty. That's wild.
yeah. No. I
Oh,
mean that he has so many attacks that you don't see every attack in one singular fight.
oh, okay. Wow,
Like
That's really
that's
like
cool.
like the
wild.
That's
variety in
really cool.
attacks is so insane that
Oh,
if you
okay.
beat it in one try, you don't see every attack.
That's crazy. Well, that's I mean that's honestly that's a good. Yeah, that's devious too because you're like, oh, I think I have this guy down, and then he launches three different attacks at you that you didn't see before. Okay. Wow. Any other story boss fights that stood out from memory?
Um. Well. The semi fight was like really cool. I felt that that was like mechanically that wasn't my favorite, but like visually that was like really cool with the visuals and the music.
The Cyrene one.
Siren, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's one of my
that's
favorites.
the one I
Go.
mentioned earlier. She's great.
Okay. Yeah. Which boss fight stuck out to you, Dory?
Yeah, so a big big fan of her. Obviously, I thought she was great. I really like from early on. I mean, obviously, it's a pivotal moment in the game, but the Lamp Master I thought was really cool.
Oh, that's a beautiful, beautiful fight.
Yeah, like I just loved his design, and I thought he was,
The walk up to it.
yeah, really
Oof,
awesome.
yeah, yeah,
You have to shout out the Renoir fights just because of the music. I mean,
yeah.
the music is just so good in those fights. So I think, and they're just very memorable fights. So I think they're very cool. One and I'm sure we're going to get into our characters here,
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah.
But I have to give a little bit of a shout out. And is this a traditional boss fight? No, but my boy Francois and the world's strongest ice attack. I got to give him the credit in the world. I love Francois. He is great, and he was not joking. He does indeed have the world's strongest ice attack in the world.
That's awesome. Yeah, those are all very good shouts. The Cyrene fight is just so much beautiful spectacle. The camera work and how it uses the angles and it uses elevation. At some point, I'm like, wait, am I gonna have to like defend the attack from way up in the air with the camera? Like I can't even see my characters. Like when am I gonna actually be able to interact? So that was some really good pure spectacle. Lamp was it Lamp Master, right? I kept thinking Lamp Lighter, Lamp Master. The run up to that with the lamps that activate, you're like, ooh, what is gonna happen here? And then and then you fight him. That was the Lamp Master was probably when I went from really liking the game to thinking like, okay, this game is going to be really special. When it threw that at me. And then the other one I want to shout out was the Duelista. Was the one that you fight on the bridge with the
Oh
dual
yeah.
swords. Yeah, that was the one where I was like, okay, this is almost like a From Software boss. You're fighting like this dual wielding kind of traditional light knight looking character that really that's probably the one early on, not early on, maybe kind of like midway-ish through where I was like, okay, that really reinforced that you're really going to have to parry in this game early and often. So, and I think it's, if I remember, I think Duelista was shortly. I think it was shortly after Gustav died, or like you. I think you shortly after you
Yeah,
like bury Gustav, ceremoniously bury him. I think.
yeah, it was the
Yeah.
first boss you fight with
Yeah.
Verso in your party,
That's right.
and that was
Yeah.
also the first boss that really started to use the delayed attacks, like to throw
Yes.
your timing off. So that was
Yeah.
that was the
Yeah.
souls moment for me. Like
Yeah.
we're delaying attacks now. That's nice.
Yeah, the wind up, yeah, the French wind up, yeah. And then those dual wielding overworld bosses honestly were probably my biggest bugaboo throughout the game. Yeah, those dual wielding really God, I'm having a brain fart. The slow moving wind up enemies were like, okay, guys, let's relax here. But no, that was probably one of my more memorable fights. Yeah, it's just I mean, obviously the Painter's fight was just amazing spectacle as well. Um, when you elevate on Monoko, I think for the what is it, the second or third phase, that was definitely like kind of like a Marvel movie Avengers moment. I'm like, okay, this is really really cool spectacle, worthy of a sort of final-ish boss, if you will, for what you think is kind of like the main arc of the story. But yeah, I think was there anything else from y'all's notes as far as like the combat and the overworld? And anything that you wanted to shout out before we kind of get into the meat of the story and characters?
I wanted to shout out Gross Death, the big rock ball that jumps down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down
Oh
until
yes,
until you do like 25 turns of it.
yes,
Yes, that was fun.
yeah. That was a good troll. Did either of you, Ryoshi? You probably did. Did you go back and beat that the head of the gestural village? I forget
Yeah,
the name of it. Yeah,
yeah.
you did. Okay. Yeah, I tried that once and I'm like, okay, this is gonna. I gotta go back in a long while because I got wiped in one hit. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
you have to if you want to get all the weapons because you
Yeah.
get one of the special weapons for winning the cup at the beginning or the like when you first get to the Chesterfield village.
Yeah.
But if you want those special weapons for every character, you have to beat the chief with every character.
Oh, okay. So you have to. Okay, I get you. Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't get those other weapons any other way.
Okay.
I think the
Go ahead.
only other thing I wanted to shout out, because Ryochi is too humble to do it himself, so I'm going to do it. Ryochi had a really good video that I ended up watching about the combat in this game, and I just really wanted to echo how much I agree with that. That I think this combat is great, but it is something I hope that developers don't just try copy and put everywhere, especially in RPGs and just in general. Like, I think it's special here, and I would love for this studio maybe that to become their identity and for them to improve on it. I think it's a great style of combat, but it's definitely something that I hope is, not copied to death, because I could see other people not doing a good job with that. So
Yeah, and I think like thank you for shouting it out, but I think one of thing is that it takes away for some of the tacticality in a turn-based game when you can just negate all the damage with the parries. Like it's really fun, but I don't want Persona 6 to have this
yeah,
style of
no, I
combat.
agree completely. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I agree too. I actually have that in the agenda near the end. We'll kind of sort of address that of sorts, but now we're going to get into really where I think the game really elevates and shines, and it becomes something truly special. Was the word that I used when I finished the game, and why I ultimately wanted to do this episode is we'll start out with the characters, and so combat aside, since we already discussed kind of the builds and everything, in terms of characterization, writing, who were some of your favorite characters? We'll start with Dorian.
I mean, I'm going to bring up Francois again. I don't care.
Francois.
And I'm going to tie him in with SK, because I think they're both wonderful characters. Everyone's going to talk about Esque. We all love Esque. I need a plushie of Esque like yesterday.
Oh yeah.
He's very, Esque reminds me, if Ghibli, he's so Ghibli to me. Like, he's just perfect in that design. I would not,
Yeah,
he would not be out of place
like a
in
spin
Ghibli
on
movie.
Totoro from
Exactly.
yeah.
I love him
Yeah.
to death. And then him and Francois's little arrangement where they live, it's a highlight of the game for me. I know it's not a super massive part, but that bringing him back, the grumpy looking rock, is just tremendous character building and stuff for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so both of those I think are obvious standouts to me. And yeah, especially Esque. I mean, Esque is just, I love that this guy is somehow the most powerful being in the universe, but he's just too lazy, so he doesn't really, do anything with it.
Yeah, and I like that they used him as the, speaking of like JRPG tropes, they used him as like the kind of the evolution of traversing the overworld,
Yes.
when it's like you
Yeah.
swim or you fly. I'm like, oh, that's how they're using him too. That's very, very clever.
It's funny, when that was in, I think it was in the Xbox trailer or something, and we were talking earlier about your expectations going into the game. When I saw that, like, SK character specifically, and using him for traversing the open world, I was like, oh, like, that's kind of one of the moments that like drew me into this game. I was like, oh, that looks really cool. That's like Final Fantasy-ish almost. Like, I love that.
I kind of wish
So
they didn't spoil the flying in the trailer.
yes, I agree. Yeah.
Because I was waiting for the flying the whole time because they showed it in the trailer, so it was like kind of disappointing. It would have been a nice like surprise at the end.
Yeah. I think when you traverse the overworld and you see things underwater, and you're like SKA can't travel underwater yet. I'm like, oh, that they're gonna do that thing, and it led my mind to think, oh, they're probably gonna eventually do up in the air, because you could tell there were areas up in the air that you couldn't reach it. I'm like, okay, that's probably what they're gonna do. But again, the way it builds into the narrative, and you earn those moments, like you do in many JRPGs when you unlock that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was really rewarding. And Dorian, speaking of superfan, your main man Ben Starr as Verso as well. Was he?
Of course, you knew Versa was coming up.
Yeah.
I love what this game does, and it's so, like, I will, like, so you just mentioned Ryochi, how the game spoiled the flying, which I agree. I wish they didn't do,
Yeah.
but they were very good at not spoiling Versa, and they kind of played into that in the marketing. They were very, very good at keeping that under wraps, and everything that happens with Gustav and him. Gustav was great, like, an incredible character. I'm sure we'll talk about him too.
Yeah.
Charlie Cox just randomly showing up for this game and batting
Yeah.
a 10 out of the park here.
Yeah.
But Ben Starr's Verso is just fantastic once he gets in there, and he plays a very crucial role. And it's not particularly easy because you start off the game obviously, and one of the things that drew me into this game right away was the relationship between Gustav and Mael, and it's an anchor for me. Like you want to see these two, what happens with them. They're basically brother and sister, and see them succeed. And then of course what happens with Gustav is tragic, and Verso needs to step in and kind of bond that relationship, which it turns out once you get to the end is an actual family relationship basically between the two of them. And I think they do a tremendous job with that. I mean, Jennifer English is so good as Maya. I think she's the best voice actor in the game personally. I think she's the heart and soul of the game, and I think Maya is incredible. But I'm a massive Ben Starr fan, and yeah, I think he does a great job with Verso. I think he provides he it's a hard role for him to step in, and because Gustav is so good, and have to kind of shift gears and be like, okay, now this is I'm here, I'm going to be kind of narratively leading a lot of the stuff going forward. But he just does a tremendous job, and it's such an interesting, well thought out character, especially when you get into some of the ending stuff, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. But the twists and turns along the way, a very tragic character, but so well done.
Yeah, he did Verso's world weariness very well, even from the outset when you're not sure why. You can tell like this guy has he's seen some in his day, right? And he does it very well with his voice acting, and the character designers and artists really display that very well. So yeah, I knew you would want it. Was there any other characters for you that stood out?
The last one I had actually on my, well, I mean, they're all, for the record, they're all great.
Yeah,
Like,
they're all great. Yeah,
I
yeah,
just highlighted like 3 or 4
yeah,
because I didn't want to do too much.
yeah.
The last one for me was Lune. Lune was my love interest pick. I thought she was such a great character, and specifically, what really drew me into her. Like I liked her all the way through, but at the end of the game, you get those companion side quests where you can kind of, if you've been talking to your people at camp and you build up your level enough, you'll get like a quest to go and do with them. And I really liked hers. I thought hers was fantastic. Basically, kind of going back to where her parents' expedition were lost and trying to find out more info about it. And it was really great stuff. That's one of my favorite side quests kind of in the game. I think that one was tremendous. And yeah, I really liked her character a lot. I think she was wonderful. I thought her movement was really cool. She kind of does the flying, what is it, Magneto thing? I forget the X-Men.
Yeah, like a levitating.
Yeah, she does the levitating thing. I thought that was really cool. I do wish she wore some shoes because she's drawing in a very unscrupulous crowd that I don't like.
Yeah, that's shall we say the podiatry enthusiasts that probably sold an extra 75,000 copies from that game.
Not a fan of Tarantino, getting into my game, but
yeah. What really connected me with her early on is when they go through again. We'll kind of probably touch on this in the story stuff, but they go through that horrifying, like it's like I mentioned earlier, it's like a Saving Private Ryan beach landing scene. You're like, oh my god, and then Gustav is just ready. He's basically there. He's ready to end it all. He's like, yeah, I'm done. I'm out. And she kind of walks over and says, what are you doing? You need to lock in. It's time to keep going. It's one of the mantras of the game is we continue. We keep going on, for those who come after. And she is the one that basically, she's kind of the glue of the team. So ever since that, I always just kind of gravitated to her. Like she was, again, thematically in combat, she was kind of like the anchor for me. So yeah, I really gravitated toward her. She was one of my favorite characters. Ryoshi, what about you?
Well, first I do want to give a huge shout out to Ben Starr and Jennifer English, two voice actors I don't particularly like for reasons, but this game was so good at the writing and the performance directing that I completely forgot about my displeasement with them as an so that's a huge shout out to them. Overall the cast is like insanely good. Like the problem with this game is that it doesn't have any highlight characters for me, because they're all so good. The
Yeah.
writing is so consistently amazing that none of the characters like pop up for me as my like favorites. If I had to pick one, it would also be Lune. I feel like her struggle with like she has a very like analytical mind and very
Yes.
goal oriented mind, and then when she has to confront the other people who react more emotionally to things that are happening, it creates this like choosy conflict inside of her, and that unraveling throughout the game was like incredible to like witness.
Yeah. Yeah, it was yeah, she was really great. And yeah, it's I say 2 or 3 cuz I mean, we could be here. We could probably do an entire podcast just on the characters, right? We could be there for hours talking about all of them, but it's a testament to the writing and the performances where each character is distinct. And the premise of the game, again, I mentioned this earlier, is that you want to hear everyone's perspective because they're all unique in their backgrounds and the way they were written. Like Mael, the way she's written, and in Jennifer English's performance, she is believable as like a what is she 16, 17 years old. She is believable as someone who has basically grown up knowing nothing but death, like all around her constantly, to the point where she's basically emotionally isolated herself from everyone. And it was always good to get her reaction specifically throughout every major story beat, especially not just when Gustav dies, but in like the opening when most of the party gets wiped out, um, and amongst other events in the game, to where you felt for every single character, no matter how late they showed up. It could have been Sael or even Monoko. What is his character's perspective on the goings on in the world? Where it's like, hey, we're basically immortal, but it doesn't mean that they don't have distinct perspectives or valuable input on what's going on. So, um, yeah, I think that you guys probably really highlighted all of them. My favorites are probably Mael, Lune, Gustav, um, and Verso. And it was funny because I knew that Verso was a character in the game because it just says like Ben Starr as Verso. I had no idea what he's what his angle would be, or what his background was. But it was funny to kind of notice like, hey, why isn't Charlie Cox like that involved in the promotion? Then you're like, oh, that's why. Because of course he gets eliminated, but just his relatively brief time in the game as Gustav was great, and it was believable. Like that early on point when he's basically ready to end it all. He's like, there's basically no hope. She tells Lune, tells him really what I joke to people. That's basically what every gamer needs, is to get out of their impression, to get out of their depression, is to tell them to have a attractive woman come along and tell them to lock in, and get up and go do it. So preferably one who's not barefoot, but that's we take what we can get. So
I also just want to mention quickly, part
yeah.
of the reason with the whole Charlie Cox thing was he's actually not allowed to because of Disney. So this is just another you reason for Disney. I hate Disney, and yeah, apparently they blocked him from doing any sort of promotion for anything other than stupid Daredevil. So that was the reason I not
Really?
like Disney. Yes,
I'll
yeah,
need
I was.
to,
I've been like,
I need to look up on that.
I think part of it was also because they were shooting Daredevil season 2
yes,
at the same at
that
the,
is true.
when
Oh,
promotion was
okay.
happening.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they did. I think they did extensive reshoots for Daredevil, Born Again season 2. That's a bummer. Yeah, I mean, he's, as an aside, he is great as
Oh, he's so
Daredevil. And
good.
regardless of what you think of the
so
overall shows, he's acquitted himself consistently well as that character. So I hope we do see him in more things in general.
I would
Because yeah, he's
love.
great.
I'm still waiting the story because like the whole story of this game. Like I highly recommend. Like there's so many documentaries out there now on how this game was made, and it's fascinating. Like there's so many crazy things that stumble into place. How they find people. Like the guy who does the soundtrack is insane. Like that one specifically.
Yeah, the
But
composer. Yeah, I think they found
yeah,
him off of SoundCloud or something. Was that what I?
SoundCloud because of a
Crazy.
forum
It's
that
crazy, man.
basically was suggesting.
That's
It's a crazy
the
story.
power of
It's
the
so
internet,
cool.
man. So
Yeah, power of the internet.
Yeah,
But I'm still waiting to hear the story on how the hell Charlie Cox got involved in this. I'm so curious.
Yeah,
And no one has
and
said it from what I've seen.
and the circus too.
yes, yeah. I was just gonna say Andy Serkis. Like,
Yeah.
By the way, Andy Serkis is in this game.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's
as well as
amazing.
Renoir.
He's amazing. Yeah. At some points, I forgot it was Andy Serkis. I like when in video game castings that I like when they don't recreate the character's face exactly. So like in Renoir, I could kind of see Andy Serkis's face a little bit, but it was so distinct. He honestly reminded me of Ian McShane, from Deadwood and John Wick a little bit. So I do like that. It helps. It helps you believe. It helps the actor's performance when they're not also like kind of the motion capture look of the actor. So yeah, he was amazing as Renoir, and he was probably the one where, again, as more gets revealed about the characters' relationships and what their role is in the story, he's the one that I probably had the biggest arc with in terms of my perspective on them. So
Yeah. The Renoir is hard. Like he's like great, and Sergis is great, but I can't put him in my favorite characters because there are two Renoirs. They're two totally different characters.
yeah,
So that like that like keeps him from being like really amazing in like
yeah,
as a singular character.
yeah. I totally get that. Yeah, because we'll get more into it in a moment. But yeah, the story does get pretty wild. I'm trying to look up one more thing, but shout out to Monoko's his race. There's not the. Are they, he's not a gestrel. Is he the gestrels of the? Is he a gestrel or is he?
He's a gesture.
He's a gesture.
Shout out to the gestrels that are just obsessed with fighting. I thought that was like a really funny ongoing bit. That they're basically convinced him, yeah, there's going to be a lot of fighting, and he's like, yeah, I'm in. So that was very fun. It's another thing about we can go into this. We can segue into the story with this, but the game is oddly funny in moments, which I think is necessary, but it was also effective because I think if you try to have these sort of um, pace changing or tone changing funny moments that don't land, it makes it extra unfunny and cringe. Given like the really dour, depressing kind of existentialist tone of the overall mood and of the piece. So yeah, shout out to some of the humorous moments in the game that were surprisingly effective and I didn't really expect, which I did appreciate. Were there any funny moments that stuck out to either one of you?
I really liked towards the end of the game there was this like a hangout session at the camp where they revealed that the SKA is full of wine.
Yes,
That's a great moment.
And
Yeah.
Verso was trying to keep that a secret from the rest of them. So I think that was the most like funniest scene in the whole game.
Yeah, that one got me good. That was a great moment.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, shout out to SKA. Yeah, where is the plush Sandfall? We need it. We as gamers we're ready to spend more money. Okay, so the story, and part of what I like to do with these sort of episodes that I'll do in the future is I don't look at any of my guests' notes. I have them do their own notes because I think it makes for better organic conversation because it spontaneously brings things to mind during conversation. So with the story, I wanted to kind of pull your guys' maybe favorite story moments or story beats. We'll start with you, Dorian. So I think you're kind of part of your persona, no pun intended, is the story Chad. So when we talk about the story of the game, what were your highlights?
For sure. So I mean, there's so many moments I could pull from here, but again, I didn't want to overload the list, so I just have 3 here basically. So we already talked about it, but the prologue, when the actual gamage happens, I think is it pulls you in. That's a moment that kind of sits you in there and sits you down and is like, oh, this is gonna have an incredible story. So I think that's definitely one of them for me. I think everyone, this is such a popular moment, I think, but I will say the ending of Act 1, I think, is just devastating.
Yeah.
And, there's not a lot of video game deaths that, really hurt me. I would say, like, I find for the most part they're not particularly done great, and if you even try to be done at all, because I mean, you look at what happens with some of the fan revolting sometimes, so it's something they just stay away from for the most part. But what they managed to do with Gustav, I think, is honestly one of the best deaths since Aerith in Final Fantasy VII. I think it's just tremendously done. It's horrifying. It's just the facial expressions on those characters during that scene. It's perfect. And the only criticism I would have to that moment is I do wish they give it a little bit more time to breathe, and Verso wasn't maybe there immediately after. But overall, I think that's just such an outstanding moment in the story, and it's just so good. It's such a good twist. It's something I wasn't expecting. I think I was on my stream, and what I said was, what I said was, "Oh, this is how they afforded Charlie Cox. He's not in the whole game. That makes sense." And I was like, "All right, well, now I get it."
Yeah, wait,
But
damn, how'd they get him? Oh, that's one.
yeah, there we go. So that was a great moment.
Yeah.
And then one quick other thing I just wanted to touch on, because those are two really heavy scenes. Something a little bit lighter is, I think the introduction of Monaco specifically is one of my favorite scenes in this game. I think it's just funny. It kind of shows you some humor there. I think he's a great character, and just the music. The Monaco song might be my favorite damn song in this game. It's so unexpected. You get the bow wow 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 wow. Bow wow 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 wow, and then the saxophone hits. I'm just like, oh my god, what is this game? Like, I couldn't even fight for like a minute. I was like, what is this game? But it's such a cool moment to see Monaco and see Verso's friend, and just some of the different gesturals and stuff in this world.
That's cool. Yeah. So, um, a couple of things. Yeah. The good stuff that it was like the end of the prologue, right? Where it's like, I'm sorry if you want to bow out of the game at this point, like, I don't really know what to tell you. And what made it extra devastating is when you go in and you play as Gustav, when you're basically, on the brink of death, and you're going to die, but you still go in there and you have to like do attacks anyway to force, the next cutscene to play. And it kind of reinforced, like, kind of he went out like a Chad, basically sacrificing himself to save the rest of his friends, for those who we continue, for those who come after, right? So, and then, yeah, Monoko's, that theme is just an absolute banger. It did kind of remind me of Persona, like, really, Persona 5 is the only one that I played. And that it played like when you're in the middle of this like area that's in the top of a mountain overrun with ice, and then this big like, infectious bop starts to play. I'm like, what in the world? Like, it was almost like someone picked the wrong musical track, and then like, oh, we're just gonna keep it, because it slaps. So yeah, those are good shouts. Are there any other story beat shouts that you wanted to shout out?
Again, I think, well, I the only other thing I would say is kind of tying back to that one boss fight in particular. I think that whole moment's really cool with
Yeah.
the dancer, as a story beat, and just kind
Yeah,
of
Cyrene. Yeah.
Cyrene. The story of that fight, I think, is really awesome. I appreciate that. A lot of the slower but character building moments at the campfire, I really enjoyed those. I think those were all really good story scenes, and kind of
Yes. Agreed.
digging in and getting the background of all of those. I think they're great. And I think the final thing I wanted to shout out, and again, not talking about the ending yet, obviously, but the final thing I wanted to shout out is kind of at the end of Act 2, when you kind of get that transition, you finally kind of find out what's going on, and you meet Alicia, I think is her name, Alicia.
Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah.
Alice, or I might be wrong, but I
Yeah.
think it's Alicia.
Yeah.
And you kind of meet that character, and you kind of get some insight into that. I feel like that's a scene that could, or a bit in the story that it could have failed if not acted well and written well. But I think that whole part was just written perfectly, and it was really interesting to see. And again, we'll talk about endings, but that scene really influenced where I went with things. I'll say that and kind of leave that on a cliffhanger. But
Nice.
yeah, really good
Nice.
stuff.
Ryochi, before we get into your kind of story highlights, was there anything from what Addy said that you wanted to echo? Or
Yeah, definitely the Gustav's death was really really good. I also were like expecting it, mainly mainly because of the chapter was named Gustav, like
Yes.
Act One Gustav. So like that kind of teased it for me, like to my brain. So I wasn't that shocked when it like happened, but the scene itself was so well done. And actually, I'm gonna use that to jump to one of to my favorite points about the story, or multiple scenes in the story. Uh, some of the scenes with Renoir and painted Alicia throughout the game when Mile confronts them, or other places, they're so cryptic when you first play the game. Like, you don't really understand what they're saying, but when you watch all of those scenes after you have beaten the game, like I watched many streamers play those moments, they make so much sense. Everything they're saying makes so much sense. Like, for example, in that moment after Gustav dies and Renoir like pushes Mile out of her body, like that weird Doctor Strange scene.
Yep.
That conversation makes so much sense when you realize that it's Aline, the mother, and Renoir, the father, discussing the situation. It's those scenes have so much more weight now after you have beaten the game. Like, it makes so much sense.
It feels like something good to replay. Like you get so much out of a replay. I feel like in some of those scenes, I've gotten the feeling for that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. They did a really good job early on of when you didn't know what was going on, but yet you were still invested. And I really wasn't confused because they kind of hint at enough to say, okay, these characters are connected. Um, but yet you're not really confused as to what was going on. Ryoshi, what else from the story stood out to you?
Um, well, the landing scene and what follows
Yeah.
after it, that is such a
Oof. Yeah.
striking scene. One fun tidbit, one also for second playthrough. In that beach scene, you can see Verso saving Mile in the background. If
Yeah,
you
I
watch
saw that. I saw that in a clip
if
online.
you
Yeah.
watch
Yeah,
it
it's really
back,
cool.
it's really cool, well done. And that leading up to probably my favorite moment in the story, except the ending, is the first camp scene with Lune and Gustav, where they like confront each other. And when, like I said before, I love how Lune has this like analytical, goal-oriented mindset, and then you see Gustav's like just so broken, and Lune has that like powerful monologue uh, about like. Uh, not when if not if when somebody falls we continue. It has
Yes.
so much power. It still stands as my one of my favorite moments in the game. And otherwise it's pretty much all the scenes with Renoir and Verso, and like I said before, like that teasing of what is actually going on behind in the background.
It's a good shout on that. Not if, when somebody falls. It's such a powerful line, and that's a great moment. I love that scene.
Yeah, Lune's Rich, you mentioned it earlier, her kind of like her constant conflict of like the nature versus nurture approach was just, I mean, pretty much everything character wise was exquisitely well done, but hers was really really great. And they did such a great job of every character being distinct and convincing with their perspective. I'm trying to think of what else. Probably another story moment that stood out for me is when you, I don't know if I don't know if it's necessarily a story moment, but I'm a big with games, really on any kind of media. I'm really big into the lore of the world, and so when you get to the battlefield area of the game, I forget what it is called, Forgotten Battlefield or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, you kind of learn about, like, oh my god, there was like this massive battle and siege that went on and happened, and it recontextualized kind of the history of what happened. It's like okay, they weren't doing these kind of isolated expeditions over and over. There used to be like a huge standoff going on that you learn about in the world. which I felt was really, really super cool. It's Ryoshi, you'll probably appreciate this. Addy, you might cringe, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Keyblade graveyard in Kingdom Hearts, where you're like, okay, some stuff really went down here. And yeah, I've recently played the Kingdom Hearts games, so yeah, that's why that was kind of on the brain. I'm like, okay, I remember this. So yeah, I appreciate a lot of that kind of lore stuff, the lore revelations in the world. Yeah, the beach scene was like, I mean, that was absolutely horrifying. Like, oh my god, the revelation, the initial standoff at the mansion. I think that's when Verso was revealed to be Renwar's son. Correct, I
Yeah, yeah,
believe. Yeah, yeah, that was really cool. And then really, anytime you found another entrance to the mansion as well, because when you first get there, you're like, oh, I can really only go in this one passage. Like, what is going on? This is kind of like it's kind of like with the rest of the game where you kind of understand there's more going on here. This is very mysterious and unique, and the payoff with that was amazing as well when you learn kind of about what's going on with the mansion. It is almost kind of like a culmination of the game and all of the reveals that went on and happened. Um, and then probably the first encounter with the paintress, because it's another example of where you're like, she looks like really sad and depressed. Like she's not doing this as like some type of like mustache twirling megalomaniacal person who's just wiping out these people. Um, there's more going on with this character that I wanted to find out more about. So it wasn't necessarily like the revelation bombs for me. It was realizing that there is more going on with the story than what I thought. And then my last one is probably when Verso opens the note, I guess at the end of Act 2 cutscene, when Renoir kind of hinted that you're going to doom everyone. I'm like, oh man. And then when everyone gets wiped away, I'm like, oh, I kind of had an idea of what happened, because earlier on in the game, I was racking my brain with theories. I'm like, would it be kind of wild? This is all just kind of like a Matrix thing where everyone is just kind of animated into this world somehow. And sure enough, I was like, oh my god, that was actually one of my theories. And so yeah, um it was not only well done because of kind of the visuals of it, but I recall how stone faced Versa was. He was just kind of like acceptance of what he did, and then everything that transpired after that. And then my last one is probably the very ending, and it's based on my choice, which we'll discuss later on. But oh yeah, I'm like just like reliving all of these moments, and yeah, it's just very deep and heavy. Was there anything from either one of you? Was there anything that I brought up or mentioned that you wanted to elaborate on?
I want to like when you mentioned the
Yeah.
and seeing like the bodies of the other expeditions. It's like
Oh yeah.
it contextualizes like these expeditions were a big deal before, when there were more people to
Yeah.
join them. But as we close and close on the timer, there were less and less people every year
Yeah.
choosing to go on these expeditions. And a part of that is the notes that you found, like the
Yeah.
journal logs
Yeah.
that you find from other expeditions. I think those are like some of my favorite like uh, journal notes that you find in video games, because there weren't too many of them, and each one of them were so unique to that expedition, like seeing like how many different kinds of expeditions there were, that some of them were the climbers who set up all the climbing points in the
Yes.
world. And
Yeah.
then of course a shout out to Expedition 60, going bare naked through the barrier.
That's yeah, and another kind of an aside to that too is I always liked discovering what number was going to be on the new flag that you discovered, like the checkpoint. It's like okay, and then like you mentioned, it's kind of like hoping that there would be another like audio log. Although I will say, quality of life thing, guys, let me play the audio log outside of the menu. Like when I leave the menu.
Yes,
Yes, thank you.
yes. We
Yes,
we 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 figured this out with Bioshock. How long
yes.
ago? So
Yeah,
I
it's like you do
completely
a
agree.
disservice. Like you want to listen to it, but also you don't want to sit in the menu. Like let me,
Yeah, but they are great. I agree with Ryochi. Like those are actually some of my favorite audio logs in games. Like I was very fascinated to hear every single expedition. I wanted to know more about them. I thought they were really cool.
Yeah, Dory, did I bring anything else to mind with the
You
story?
you, you kind of did, and a bit of a side tangent
Go ahead.
related because you mentioned the mansion.
Yeah,
I actually really like the gameplay hub of that too. I thought that was really cool.
yeah,
How you'd constantly go into that mansion, and kind of there were secrets in there to discover, and you'd find different like entrances to it in the world itself. So you'd start opening doors in it, and I thought that was really cool. I just like how they did all that. I thought that was neat. Wanted to mention that.
yeah. And the payoff to that was really really well. It really kind of, I don't want to say wrapped up, but it tied up everything so well. When I would find a door to the mansion in a level somewhere, I was so afraid that I somehow got locked off from being able to easily go back. I'm like, oh wait, am I gonna have to start over at the level? But no, like when you go into a specific entrance, that's the only way you can go back out. I was like, okay, thank God. So I was afraid that uh, I was gonna get locked off to the level or something and have to restart it.
No,
But
good game design. Because yeah,
yeah,
in a poorly designed game, I could absolutely see that being the case.
yeah, yeah. Let me see. Was there anything else from my notes? Okay, so again, I mentioned that I like to keep my guest notes like separate for themselves because it sparks conversation. So with that being said, the end of the game, you either basically choose to side with um, Mael's philosophy or you choose to side with Verso's philosophy as to whether to destroy the painting or to keep it and remain there. So, um, very quickly before you elaborate, Dorian? What was your choice? Without elaborating,
I sided with Mael.
Mael, Ryochi. Who did you side with?
I sided with Verso.
Verso. Oh, good, perfect. Then we have okay. So, Dorian, we'll start with you because I sided with Verso. So, Dorian, what was your? Why did you side with Mael?
So one of the big reasons for it, I'd like to save and talk about in the theme section because
Understandable. Okay.
I think it's a theme thing
Okay.
for me. So I'm not going to get into that part of it.
Okay.
I will say beyond that though, it was a very tough decision for me. I didn't, it was one of those things where actually, I don't know, I have my stream up there. I should actually clip it because it's kind of funny. And I'm like, I think I say, oh my God, F you game. You're actually making me choose F you game. Something to that
Yeah,
effect.
really. As a quick aside, like I don't know, Ryochi, maybe you can echo this. It's like one of my favorite. When I say favorite, I mean like favorite because I was genuinely conflicted by it as Addy mentioned as well. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was not, in the moment I was not happy because I'm like, oh, you're really making me choose here. You're
Yeah,
nasty.
in a JRPG.
Because I love both of them, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It was a tough decision for me. Where I kind of stood from it, I feel like the entire game, I wanted to save my goal at the beginning of this game was to save this world, was to save these people.
yeah,
And I felt that Mael's ending was the only way to do that. I feel that, I understand, where Verso's coming from. And I do have problems with Mael's ending. There's certain things I don't like that she does in it, with especially when it pertains to Verso. But here's a girl that on the outside, if we're talking about the real world, she's disfigured. She can't speak. Her parents are kind of a broken mess. Her sister blames her for the death of Verso and can't really stand her. You know, would I want to live in that world? I don't think so. So I can understand where Mael is coming from. And for me, that was just okay. I get it, and I want to help you see this through. I think that this world deserves to be saved. I would like to, and I don't think what's waiting for you out there is particularly worth going back to. So, I do understand the game paints that as the more negative ending, and I'm totally accepting of that. But I do defend it.
yeah. I totally understand. I was hoping one of you picked the Mael ending because I obviously I picked the Verso ending, but when you frame it and contextualize it as picking it basically for Mael, moreover than any other reason. Honestly, I totally respect and understand that, and that's actually a really good justification. So I'm very glad that not only one of you chose Mael, but have provided a really good justification. Ryochi, you chose Verso. Why?
I think came to the scenes before, just before in the fight against the real Renoir, and I think real Renoir has had so many good points. Like he was so convincing, and seeing how like sick the mother Aline was, I think that just like solidified for me how like destructive this painted world, this canvas can be for the real people. And then seeing the soul of Verso, the little boy painting, and like when Verso uh ask him, "Are you tired?" or something like that. Then the nod just broke me. So after that, it was like clear for me that I think like Verso is in the correct, and so that's why I like chose that one. And I think after like seeing the ending, it was like very satisfying for me because like Dorian said, Miles' life is very very bad outside, but at least there is room for healing because there was no room for healing inside the canvas. That was like where I stand at that point.
Yeah, that's understandable. And geez, another good shot that we missed. That little boy that you encounter throughout the game. That's another like kind of narrative bomb at the very end before you choose. You're like, oh my god. I I wasn't overly surprised that it was Verso, but um, it was still very impactful. It was a good payoff because it's very again he's like very cryptic throughout the game. He doesn't talk very long. He has like two or three lines when you keep encountering him, but um, yeah. So I chose Verso as well because it kind of reminded me of the ending decision in Ghost of Tsushima, where I kind of really thought a lot about um, the themes of the game and what it explores in each character's perspective and where they're coming from. And ultimately, I came down upon the common refrains of the game being we continue and kind of mostly we continue, but it's also like those who come after. But that constant refrain of we continue constantly came up, and it was important to for Mael to keep continuing with the real world despite the hand that life dealt her, regardless of how much of it was her own doing and how much agency she actually had as a even though she was a child, um, and that it was important to continue on in confronting reality despite whatever setbacks or tragedies befall us. It made me think of like real life, which again is a testament to the effectiveness of the game, and that it was important for her to do that despite you know the misery of what might seem as day-to-day life, and the reveal of Eskie being her real life sort of comfort toy as well. That's a real, I would say, like a broke me point. That was another revelation that kind of just broke me, is that she was using that as an escape, despite how tragic and punishing her day-to-day reality was. That's ultimately why I sided with Verso, but I totally understand Dorian or other people siding with Mael, and that's why again is a testament to how wonderfully conflicting that end decision was. I didn't expect it because JRPGs I don't necessarily associate with big impactful decisions like that, and we really hadn't been confronted with that sudden or impactful of a decision throughout the whole game. So
It's something I usually don't like in games. I'm going to be honest with you.
yeah,
There's plenty of games I think that don't do it well.
no, yeah,
I
I
do
agree.
think it works well here though, so I got to give them credit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I definitely liked it more than the Ghost of Tsushima decision at the end too. So to be clear, so Ryochi, what were you going to say?
yeah. I was about to say that I really don't like the ending of Ghost of Tsushima when it
No.
does a
Yeah, no,
binary.
I think there's a very clear choice in Ghost of
Yeah,
Tsushima.
exactly. I
Yeah,
agree. I
It
agree
shouldn't
too.
be a choice.
No, I shouldn't. Yeah. No, yeah. So the ending choice is a good segue to kind of the themes of the game to talk about it at a deeper level. So the two primary ones that I drew from the game, one is kind of um, really the hammered home. Effectively, when I say hammered home, I don't mean that as a negative, but it's a constant theme throughout the game. Is the idea of grief, how we how we process it, how we go on our day to day lives after it happens, and how do we move on as best we can from it. And it made all the characters interesting because you wanted to find out their perspective. So we'll just talk about the theme of grief throughout the game. We'll start with you, Ryochi. What did you
yeah.
take away?
I think the theme of grief is layered very well in the game because you have the uh, most obvious layer of the like real life people, the real life family that is grieving the loss of Verso very very different ways. Like Mile is totally like apathetic about it. Clea is very angry, and Aline, the mother, is just so lost in the canvas,
Mm,
like just like trying to keep the idea of Verso alive through the canvas. So I really liked how they like portrayed that through each of the real life people. But then you have the other layer of people experiencing grief in Lumiere in the painted world. So everybody has had some like personal stories revolving around grief. Like Ciel lost his husband and her baby. Lune lost his parents at the expedition, and I feel like this game does it so well where it gives you so many points of view to grieve that it like covers the whole spectrum of it. The I feel like overall, like slightly expanding on that, I I usually very much dislike stories about like fictional worlds being a coping mechanism or ideal worlds being a coping mechanism. There is one certain game that I very much dislike it in, but I feel like this game had enough nuance with the different characters that I wasn't bothered with it, bothered with the idea of this ideal world, this painted world being like this coping mechanism for grief.
yeah, that's very well said. Dorian, what were your takeaways about kind of the exploration of grief throughout the game?
Yeah, I echo a lot of what Ryochi said there. I think they do a good job at layering the different parts of grief throughout the game, whether it's in the real world or whether it's within the painting. And that's a good call on Sael. I was going to mention her too. I think her story in general is very, very sad. And when you get to know it, and it's actually why I didn't even consider romancing her because it didn't feel right to me with her lost husband and child who she clearly still cares deeply about. But yeah, it's something that pops up throughout the entire game. Like I think even like I think back to like the different masks you have to fight. That one boss where you're going down the three routes, and there's like the sorrowful one and the anger one and the joyful one, and kind of all putting on a face, right? In grief is what you're doing. You're hiding it,
Yeah.
and it's just constantly popping up throughout the game. And I think that, like I said, they do a very very good job at making you feel for these characters and just making you kind of bringing you into that world. Verso, I think in general, like even before you kind of figure out what's going on with him, just from the way he talks, he's a very sad sounding character. And that might just be part of Ben Star too, because he's got such a deep, booming voice. And but he just feels sad to me. Like, and I wasn't surprised at all. Like, I mean, I was surprised with the revelation, but it wasn't a giant shock to me because I think they do a great job of making that character just feel. There's just something sad about it throughout that entire thing, and I think they do a good job with that.
Yeah, yeah, those are good observations. And really, a couple things popped in my head as you guys were talking. One is that really the paintress Aline really kind of serves as a real warning to what Mael or Alicia could become if she remains in the canvas. Something that I really think of. And then another thing that I thought of after I finished the game and I was thinking about it is really the fictional characters are kind of idealized as to what the real life family would ideally kind of do to handle and process their grief as they kind of move on as best they can. And so, and kind of the second theme of creator versus creation is the creations of the creators really are um, handling their own grief better than the creators are, which I thought that was something that was um, really well done. It was my takeaway. I'm not sure if either of you had that takeaway, or maybe I was reading it wrong there, but no, yeah, it was really good. I think the final shot of the verso ending, where you had of the family really sort of coming together of sorts, kind of standing at Verso's grave. It seems like maybe they're ready to potentially, I don't want to say move on, but kind of continue on with their lives in acceptance and kind of um, playing the hand of cards as best as they were dealt. Um, I feel like reinforced how effective that choice and ending was with the grief and how we move on and how we process it. So,
Yeah,
was there anything else? Go ahead.
like I said before, I think like in the verso ending there is room for healing. It's not instantly like
Yeah,
sunshine and rainbows, the
yeah,
ending, but there is at least a potential for repairing those family relationships and finding a way forward through the grief. When in the mile ending, it feels like it gets stuck in a loop, like Mile just becomes the new paintress, like having this uh, puppet. I don't want to say it because it's a negative connotation, but having this like puppet master like status in like having this fictional world where
yeah,
she can feel at least some sort of happiness. But is it a real happiness? It's hard to say.
yeah. It's true. It's like is an escape from your grief. Like the grief is still there, right? It's almost like an alcoholic, right? Like you can drink to forget the pain, but I don't. It's not true healing, or it's not true processing of it, right? And I actually haven't watched the Mael choice ending, but the Verso ending, that cutscene, I don't know if there's a single line of dialogue, maybe in the very beginning, but so much of it is unspoken. You can just read the characters or their facial expressions, and everything in that scene, and like you see like the full real Alicia, and it is heartbreaking. Like Dorian mentioned, it is heartbreaking. You feel for her. It's horrible. Her life. She was dealt a horrible hand in life, but um, I don't want to say you have to. I mean, it's easy to tell someone else you're not literally in their shoes. Like you have to move on and do as best you can. But yeah, it's how we process that. Dorian, did you have any other points that you wanted to make based on what we said?
No, I think all of that
Okay,
makes perfect sense.
cool,
I don't disagree with a lot of that. I
cool,
agree with it.
cool. So yeah, I kind of mentioned it too. Is the other theme that I took away from the game is kind of the creator versus the creation, which I don't is not really a new theme in really any medium, especially games. You see it a lot in movies. I think it's probably in literature as well. But yeah, I really took away from it how closely attached people can be, or creators can be, to their creation, to the point really of obsession. And at what point does that obsession, the creator's obsession with creation, at what point does it get the better of them? Do they become to lose a sense of their day to day humanity? I guess as I was I'm trying to fumble my way through this, but what were your guys' takeaways of the creator versus the creation? Or am I like kind of off base in mentioning that theme, or what were your guys' thoughts?
No, I definitely think you're right, especially with Miles' mother.
Yeah.
And, the fear kind of is that Miles might fall into that same trap, with the Miles ending, which she kind of does. But again, I'll talk about that in a bit. I think that is definitely something they touch on, though, and is very accurate because, Miles, I think there's a healthy balance to be had there. Miles' mother can't find it. That's the unfortunate thing because again, I'm dancing around it right now, what I want to talk about, but I will talk about it soon. I think Miles' mother, she's so lost in her grief and in this creation that she can't really. She's lost some of herself for sure with the face decaying. I think that's kind of a symbol of that as well, that you see in the game, a visual representation of that. And she needs to back out to heal a bit, I think. And I do think there's still a world where you can keep this portrait, where you can, and there are reasons to keep this portrait, but obviously there needs to be some limitations to that. And her, like, how obsessed she gets with it at this point in the game, anyways, where we are, where we've sat in, she's completely consumed by it and basically gone at that point.
Yeah, I agree. It's really is almost like she's in like an emotional sort of coma or vegetative state. Um, yeah, I agree. That's a good observation. Ryoshi, what were you have anything you want to add to what Dorian just said?
Um, no, I think there's a lot of weight in there. I totally agree, but I do wanna actually fight against this creator versus creation
Go
idea
ahead. Go ahead.
because the paintress isn't the creator. Neither is Mael. Verso is the creator, the young Verso, the who first painted the canvas. Like
Yes, that's
this,
true.
because I see it more like this sounds weird, but I see more it as fans taking over a fictional universe. Uh,
Not a fan of the fan sequels.
yeah, because I feel like they're twisting and turning it what Verso like naively created as a child. Like this whole world was created by Verso as a child, and now Aline, the mother, and Mile as the sister, come in and try to twist things to keep it alive in some ways. So yeah, I think like like good example is like Disney taking over Star Wars. Even though I'm a big fan of Star Wars even to this day, but it's a good like comparison. Like they're twisting the original product to something that it is not. So that's one thing I took away from that, like twisting somebody else's creation to fit your own purpose.
Yeah, that's a very good. Yeah, that's a great observation. That's even deeper. So I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. Um, that is great, and then it ties even more into the grief stuff, right? Because it's part of their personal attachment to him. It's really the only. Um, it really is like they can dive into an expression of his soul and his imagination. So I think it really is like the only true piece that they have left of him in any real way, I suspect, as far as we know. Um, so yeah, that's a really good shout. I even forgot what I was gonna what I was gonna mention. But yeah, so was there anything else kind of about the themes of the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
You
You
go
go
ahead.
first.
You go ahead.
go ahead, Dorian.
No, you go. You go. You're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, the game actually, this might be a weird comparison, but this game actually reminded me of Alan Wake in certain ways, where you have this omnipotent creator, a writer in Alan Wake's case, and a painter in this case, and other people, either fictional or real, are pulled into this story against their will. I really like the comparison in my mind, because I'm a huge Alan Wake fan. So it was like nice to see those like mirroring themes about like these omnipotent creators pulling in uh, unsuspecting victims in a sense.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. That's another really good shout. Yeah, when that sort of revelation came, um, a small part of me was like, oh man, so those like I don't want to say those like the painting the I don't know what you would have called them like the painting exclusive fictional characters. They sort of didn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things, but as the player, as the player who went on the journey with them, it's like yeah, they still mattered to me, a lot because I had an attachment to them as the person who experienced the story that the game creators made. But yeah, that's a really good shout. I totally understand that comparison. Dorian, did that resonate with you? Did you get the takeaway from that?
Yeah, a little bit actually. So, I feel like, and I don't know if it's just kind of glossed over or if people disagree with me, and if they do, that's totally fine. It might just be something to disagree with. One of the big reasons I picked Mael's ending, though, is now with the huge exception of Verso, and I understand Verso's the one that painted this, so I think Mael bringing Verso back into that painting and making him continue to be there in that ending is nasty business. Let me get that out of the way. I think it's very mean, and that's not what I would have done.
Yeah.
Beyond that, though, I feel like everyone in that painting is basically sentient at this point. Like they all have feelings, they all have desires. When the scene where Lune is basically dying and she's freaking out about it tears me apart because she doesn't want to die. She has these feelings now. She has these emotions. They all do. And I feel like just wiping them all out for the sake of Mael possibly being able to heal, which she could in the real world. She absolutely could. They hint that that's a possibility. I don't think it's a guarantee though. I think the family, the parents are going to try to work through their stuff. I think the sister might be too far gone, honestly,
Yeah.
but who knows? I think eliminating everyone at that price is a really high price to pay, and I don't know personally if it's the right price for me, because especially even in the Verso ending, you get a quick shot of them all waving goodbye, which is really sad, but I can't. I don't know. Maybe somebody will have to convince me otherwise, but I can't just see them all being okay with that. And again, maybe that's just the way it's painted. Specifically, it is Verso's painting, correct? But I don't like the idea of basically genociding all of these people, um, just so Mael can go and live a potentially, not great life.
Well, I think Rich, I'll let you respond, but I think that's a testament to um, the game creators and the writers of the game because the other characters don't have the perspective that you as the player have as you're like you are on this journey with them from moment to moment, so it really is almost like you the player are just as much a party member as these other members of the party. So like the characters were so effectively well done and written and performed that it's totally understandable that um, a player would become that attached to them, is what I would say. So I totally understand that. Ryochi, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I get that point. I think
Yeah.
maybe in this case I'm a bit like, I don't know what the what the correct word is, but instantly when they're fictional people, they're less important to me in that sense. Like when there is a layer of like having, okay, this is weird because it's a completely fictional product, this whole game, but
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're
So
saying.
layers of meta, right?
yeah, there's another
Yeah,
layer of
yeah,
meta,
yeah,
but instantly when it becomes clear that there is a real life family there that is hurting, and then these other people like Lune and CL and everybody in Lumiere are fictional people, I just don't care about them as much in that point. Like I'm taking a very logical choice in that moment when it's
yeah,
presented. That's why like I said before, I usually don't like these storylines like where there's a fictional slash ideal world that somebody has created where there is like no pain and stuff like that. It it just doesn't work for me because I always take the too logical choice in that moment. So, but I do get it. I do get the point of like them being sentient. But for me, just like there's a clear line between real people and fictional people, which makes the choice easy for me.
Yeah, and I understand that. If I could have that line in my head, it'd be an easy choice for me too. Like I would just be like, okay, we're picking Verso. Be really simple for me, and I do sympathize with that because you're right. Like that is the real world in the game. That is the real world, quote unquote. Um, she's living it, but that doesn't. We spend what 20 depends on how long you took to play the game. For me it was about 30-31 hours. So
yeah,
of that 30-31 hours we spent what 29 of it in the fake world, so to speak. So from my perspective, that's just almost, that is my real world. That those characters to me are the real ones. But yeah.
yeah. That's understandable. And I thought a little bit more about the ending. This is why I wanted to add this section for sure. I think it speaks to the quality of the game and how effectively it conveys the themes. Is that in our current real world, in our modern day, there's so much discussion about artificial intelligence, the metaverse, etc. And it's like all this stuff you see people. You're starting to see hints of it, like people becoming attached to like AI prompts or AI characters. And you've heard of people like that Avatar, the movie series, from James Cameron, people becoming like so attached to wanting to live in Pandora, that like fictional planet, that I couldn't help but think of those types of things when I thought about this story and what it explores. And like, man, that's really, really dangerous. And whether that's, it's maybe unfair to bring that in, but I couldn't help of think of that. Even after I made the decision that I made, I kind of like, what is going on in the real world? And I'm like, oh man, um, that's what it did. And again, maybe it's just the crazy way my brain works. But um, did either of you, did that come into to play for you? Did that factor in at all for either of you? Thinking about that type of like actual real world stuff that's going on right now.
I try to forget about Avatar and
That's
those weird people as much as I
the
can. So
psyop, the psyop series.
well, no, I actually don't even mind the Avatar movies, that
No.
the second one, but I just mean the people that would want to live in that world. That's weird to me.
Yeah, I just think of like potential, even back in the day when like MMOs started becoming kind of like World of Warcraft. I played like
Yeah.
2 weeks of that. I'm like, I don't want to do this,
No,
So
same.
no.
It feels like something that a Black Mirror episode,
Yeah,
and I'm sure it
yeah,
has already, but they could dig into that more.
yeah.
But you're not wrong for sure. People, there's definitely some relationship there. I think with people wanting to live and kind of hide themselves away in these sorts of world, and it's not healthy. And it's
No,
why there needs to be a balance. And unfortunately, like, I do think, why I would agree that the Mael ending is, overall the bad ending. They do show you her face starting to rot at the end, which, by the way, good jump scare at 2 a.m. Thanks, thanks, developers.
That's
Really appreciate that.
yeah.
But it definitely paints itself, no pun intended, as the bad ending. And I understand that. I still think it's the ending I would pick based off of the other things I said. And it's really too bad to me that they can't, because I think that there's got to be a way that maybe Renoir's just a shit parent. I don't know, but I feel like you could be like, all right, you've spent 2 hours in the painting, time for dinner. Like, can we not like monitor this, man, just a little bit more? I don't know how it works, but come on, man.
Yeah, like a painting cafe that has limited operating hours or something.
Right. Like, yeah, okay, now it's time
Yeah.
to go back to the real world, say goodbye to your friends, right? Like, there's gotta be a balance there. And I understand the mother couldn't do it, and it seems like Mael can't do it, but man, you gotta, I don't know. It just sucks because I feel like there's a way to keep that world, keep the spirit, keep that world alive, keep the spirit of Verso alive without, again, torturing Verso. Verso doesn't want to be there. He shouldn't be there. Like, that's horrible to me. But
Yeah,
everything else.
Ryochi reminding us of the aspect that that's Verso's painting, and that sort of even more so than the creator versus creation thing, just more of that, even more reinforcing the processing of grief aspect was a great reminder. Ryochi, when I did the sort of did any real world aspects of like AI versus like metaverse versus, again, did any of that factor in at all for you? Did you think about that, or am I just I'm just going I'm just my
No,
crazy brain?
I think it's a clear comparison
Yeah.
to artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
and definitely like now there being like AI partners you can talk to and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's very
Yeah.
dystopian. So there's definitely comparisons to that, but I didn't really like it didn't affect my choice or like look at the world in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. It was, like I said, it was something I thought about after, because it's, what do you know? A good piece of media has you thinking about it, after
Mm.
weeks and days and weeks and such after. So yeah, were there any other thematic elements that either of you wanted to bring up and address? That you can
No,
think
that
of?
was it for me. That was the big one I wanted to cross off. So, and the grief we explored in creation versus creation. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, again, it's effective. It's a testament to how effective Mael was as a character, to where like you're like, man, in this one specific instance, I could totally understand, wanting to let someone escape.
Yeah,
Um,
and I gotta throw back to the voice acting from Jennifer English, who she's the heart and soul of this game for me, and I think just her performance in those final moments is what swayed me. Honestly,
yeah,
like, she really, like, the
yes,
desperation in her voice is
yeah,
just so strong.
yeah. Because when you choose Verso and you play as Verso, she's constantly pleading with you. I'm like, man, this is tough. It's tough. But Ryochi, any other thoughts, or anything new that you wanted to bring up about the themes that the game explores?
Not really, not really.
All right.
I think we covered the big pieces
Okay.
quite well. One
Um,
thing,
Go ahead. No, no, go ahead. Anything.
one thing
Anything.
I just remembered.
Go ahead. Yeah.
One thing I really liked, this may be a more overall thought of the game and its world, not necessarily themes, were the enemies, the enemies that didn't attack you, like the white ones, the white nevrons. Like that was an interesting like theme, that not everything is out to hurt you, like that there these sorry, I'm losing my track here, like these monsters, like having thoughts of their own as well. So it has that kind of like nice layer to it, that things that we see as monsters and something that we just kill when we meet them in the game, and then you actually come across these friendly enemies, so to speak. It
Yeah.
creates a like a nice thematic thing where like, okay, not everything in this world is a bad thing. I'm not sure if you follow my track, kind of
No,
rambling
no,
here.
yeah, I totally understand it. It actually, you reminded me of. I think there was a side. I don't know if it was a side area or it was like a side, or it was like a branch off area in like a main area. There was a creature. I think it was a gestural inside of a church that basically lost its sense of purpose and wanted you to kill it. Did you guys either of you run into that?
Yeah, yeah,
Encounter that?
it was one of the white nevrons. Yeah,
One of the what did you?
yeah,
I chose to spare it. What did you do?
yeah. I chose to spare it too because I
Okay.
felt like
Yeah, I spared it as well.
because there I had spared every white nevron so far, so I didn't want to kill it.
Yeah, I think it. I believe I know if I did for that one. I'm not sure. I don't remember running into any others of them, but again, it kind of builds into, in that case, it's like it's kind of, I think it's kind of similar to the theme of grief, where like they lost their sense of purpose in life, and I felt like um, killing them was kind of the easy out. And like the dialogue option is like, hey, you really, you should try to do your best to continue on and find like a new purpose outside of like, in this case, I think it was like combat, right, or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. They,
yeah,
they were created by Clea, the sister, to like
yes,
fight against the expeditioners. Like that was their whole purpose, why they
yeah,
were created.
yeah,
That's good. That was what I was like trying to do. That they were like trying to find a new purpose in life when the
yeah,
old one was taken away.
yeah, yeah. It's again, to kind of like parallel real world things. So many like not just people my age, but people younger. They're like in their mid to late 20s, maybe early 30s, and they get out of college. I'm sure many of them, maybe some one or two of you as well, is that you get out of college and like, all right, I'm going to go get a job in the, exact job in the degree that I got, at 4 years of college. And then it's like, well, what do I do now? I don't have I'm not able to get like a job in media or content creation or what have you. It's like, what do I do now? I have to find a new sense of purpose. In this case, it's like a job to earn a living and make a living. And I think so many of us come across that. I think it resonated with me. I certainly had to go through it. What do I do? I don't have an immediate job out of college that I really want to do. So, um, yeah, I totally, that sense of purpose is, I mean, it's resonates with so many people, if not everyone. So,
True.
Dorian, did that sort of sense of purpose thing, is that something you thought about when you played the game, or just bringing it up now? Is it something that you wanted to elaborate on?
No, definitely, it's something that was in the back of my mind, I think, throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
I do want it to just actually circle back for a second,
No,
though.
go ahead.
I mean, it kind
Anything.
of
No,
ties
go
in,
ahead.
and just shout out those the white Nevrons as well. I really like that. I thought that was great, and I think you do get a reward for sparing them all, if I
Yes,
recall.
yes. So there's a
Yeah,
secret area after you've done all of them. There's a secret area where you meet the last white Nevron, and if you save them all, you get 100 Lumina points to use. But if you kill even one of them, you have to fight the last white Nevron, and you get like 10 Lumina points after the fight.
That's
yeah.
so funny.
That's really cool. I like that a lot. So, but it was a very interesting because like you find one. I forget the first one that you find really early, but you do find one really early, and you
Yeah,
have to help them. You give them an item or something. I forget what it is. Maybe a
you had to
musical instrument or
find a
something.
like a fire that
Oh, that's it. Yeah,
for
yeah.
his lamp, and then you had to shoot the
That's it.
the
Yeah, you
lamp.
give him the fire, and then you bring it back to him, but then it gives you the option to fight him. And I was like, huh. I was like, that's interesting. Like, why would I fight him? He was chill, and I helped him, so I didn't. And then yeah, I made that my theme going forward. But I really, really did like that. I thought that was great.
Okay, so the white gesture. Okay, so I think Dorian, you mentioned this. That was the one where you have to find like the three flames or something in the lamps.
Yes, yeah, yeah. The
That's
first
okay.
one.
Yeah, yeah. I did that one early on. I was like, okay, I'll do this early side quest, because I suspected it wasn't going to be too much like exploring around, and it really wasn't.
No, they were always in the same area. The what
Yeah,
you
yeah,
needed to
yeah.
find.
That reminds me too. They had those environmental puzzles like in the modern God of War games, where you had to like find the little targets or something stuck away to break open the barriers. Do you remember those as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
treasure
I did. This
boxes.
reminded me of Modern God of War. I'm like, okay, we're doing this. Okay, that's fine. The if we don't have any, is there anything more like of the themes of the game that we want to highlight? I think we're all settled on that.
I think so.
Yeah,
We
okay.
covered
Yeah, because the
covered a lot.
very yeah, we covered a lot. The very final thing that I added it in my notes. If I didn't, it was kind of after the fact. Is there's so much discussion about when studios have a really hit game. It's like, okay, what do they do next? And ideally, I think we all could agree. It's like, well, we'd want them to do whatever the developers want to do. Ideally, with any creator, we want them to work on whatever projects that they want to in the moment. But part of me kind of hopes that they're done with this sort of universe, this like painters versus writers, or this expedition sort of universe. And I feel like where it leaves off, especially the Verso ending, that's another reason why I really liked it, is I feel like it's a really good finality for this sort of universe. I kind of hope they do um, something different, like a different universe, a different story to tell, different themes to explore. Um, what were sorry to put you guys on the spot with this, but what are you guys kind of hoping for their next project? Is there anything that you're thinking of?
Well, I first of all, like you said, at the end of the day, especially with a talented development team like this,
Yeah,
and they've made so much money off this game,
yeah, more
they
power to
will
them.
they will basically have the freedom to do what they want, and I
Yeah,
think that's important. So
awesome.
whatever that is, I will try to be there for that.
Yeah,
I think that's important. That being said, um, I'm fine with them moving on from this world and doing something new.
yeah,
I would not be opposed to them going back to this world, but I think I'd more like it as like some DLC. And if they want to do some DLC, like I would love to play as Expedition 660 busting through the barrier or something like that. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like
yeah,
give me like some put me in the past playing as a different expedition.
yeah,
I think that'd be really cool.
yeah,
Excuse my language, damn it. I think that would be really cool. On the but like in terms of the outside world, yeah, I don't know if I really want to see more of that.
yeah,
Like the real world, I should say.
yeah.
I don't know if I need to see more of that. If they wanted to explore that, I would be there for it. I would see what they would do with it. But yeah, that's not high on the list of things I would want to see. I would like some DLC, like exploring like a previous expedition, something cool like that. And then yeah, a new project I think would be really, really cool and bold, to be honest with you, because let's be honest, this made so much money, a sequel seems like a lock to me. And if they don't do a sequel, I would be very surprised because of just how well this game did for them. But they have the creative freedom now to do what they want. So let's see.
Yeah, really quickly, Ryochi, before it almost kind of reminds me of God, drawing a brain fart. The Hades developers.
A
Um,
super giant.
Thank you, Supergiant. Yeah, they did so many projects, and they're doing a Hades too. It's like, oh, it's because Hades like was their massive breakout hit. So if they do like another expedition, or they do something in this universe, if they want to explore like the Writers Guild or something, I would totally understand that, and I would be there day one as well. So Ryochi, any thoughts on like a future?
Yeah, yeah, the same as you. I want them to do what they want to do, but personally, I would really love to see a writer's world, like because
Okay,
not necessarily for story purposes, but for visuals and themes and systems, because everything about in this game is based on painting. The chroma, the lumina, the gradients, every like aspect of this world and the naming conventions and the style of certain attacks, it's based on painting terms. Like it's based on like painting theory, color theory, everything, like what made like the science behind paintings. So I would love if they took this concept and then threw it into the writers in this like painters versus writers conflict, so we could see a world made by the writers and that how that would look like. Maybe that's just Alan Wake, but
well,
but I would love to see it just for like visual and mechanics purposes.
I was going to say the Ubisoft devs can't escape the Assassins versus Templars, can they? 'cause at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
I did think of that too. I'm like, okay. But no, when you bring up again the sort of like looping in the gameplay mechanics with the theme of painting, yeah, I would be down for that. As well, like we all mentioned, like we'll be there day one, like,
Yeah, definitely.
whatever they do. So yeah, a writer's thing would be interesting. I would kind of hope they do maybe a different combat system, or maybe build upon this one, or tweak it or adapt it a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want them to do the same like twist again. I think if they do a
yeah,
sequel
agree.
with the writers, for example, they need to be clear that okay, you're playing in a fictional world and like approach it in a like completely opposite way.
Yeah, I would agree. And kind of the final where if someone enjoyed this game, were there any other games like Ryoshi? You mentioned Alan Wake. Were there any other games that came to mind as y'all were playing this, or when you finished it for any reason, not just gameplay or story or what have you? Were there any other games that you thought they think if someone played and enjoyed this game, would there be any others that you think they would enjoy?
That's a really good question. A lot of the old school RPGs, of course. Like
Okay.
this has a lot of old school Final Fantasy in it. 7, 8.
Yeah, I was going to say Final Fantasy 6 and 7.
Yeah.
There's and 8. Obviously, there's a lot of that, and I would love just to see more people try some of these, turn-based RPGs and actually give them a shot, because I see a lot of people, dump on these type of games, and it's always like, oh, which ones have you played? Well, none. Yeah, okay, well, maybe
Yeah,
give it a try.
I will say in my experience with turn-based RPGs, um, not having random encounters is a huge positive for me. I think when I hear that a turn-based game either doesn't have random encounters or you can turn them off, that's automatically makes me sort of consider it, um, broadly speaking. So,
And there's me over here who loves random encounters.
do you love random encounters? Oh man,
I do.
I forget.
I
You're even more of
do.
you're even more of a boomer than I am. I forget about
I
that.
do. I dig the random encounter. I just finished replaying Final Fantasy 7. I was like, oh man, I missed this.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, I've heard other people shout out Lost Odyssey as well. I haven't played that game, but I know a lot of people have shouted out Lost Odyssey. But no, I can't think of anything else. Is there any other?
If you want to, if you want something else,
Go ahead.
Perry and one I would possibly say is Sea of Stars. I don't think it's on the same level narratively as this game,
Okay.
but really similar kind of turn-based combat. Well, not really similar, but you kind of get some action inputs in there,
Yeah.
and it could be another gateway to getting into turn-based RPG. So I would shout out Sea of Stars, which is a great game.
Yeah, I played the demo for it. I enjoyed the dungeon that you played in the demo. I heard that the narrative has a pretty big fall off in the second half.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's pretty good narratively, but I have heard people say that. I don't
Okay.
fully agree with that. I don't get me wrong, I'm not stacking the narrative up to this game,
Okay.
but I think it's good.
Okay. Yeah, were there any other like single note that you guys had left to talk about the game? Speak now or forever hold your
Well,
podcast
I
in peace.
definitely want to end with another shout out to the soundtrack because
Yes.
it's
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, thank you for the reminder.
actually
10 out of 10.
incredible. I'm
Yes.
one of those people that sometimes I like when a soundtrack has so much variety that it doesn't really feel like cohesive anymore. The soundtrack in this game, it's cohesive. Like everything makes sense where they are. But when you have like that Goplu fight at the beginning, which starts with this ethereal underwater theme music that plays throughout the dungeon, and then it kicks into the techno track, is like insane to me. Like how well that works with such different styles of music.
Yeah, Dorian, you were gonna chime in. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna praise the soundtrack. It's so good. Like it's just there's every song feels great. Like Ryochi said, it is cohesive, but you do get different types. Like I said, when that Monaco song comes on, I was basically slack-jawed. I was like, "What is this? Like, come on, man! Like, what are we doing right now?" As a big jazz guy, because if I was to say my favorite video game soundtrack of all time, it is probably Persona 5.
Yeah.
Just because of the jazz influence I adored in that game, and then I'm going, near Mr. Kakechi Okabe's masterpiece works. And then this is probably right up there too, I gotta say. Like, and the fact, again, that this guy was basically like, hey, we're looking for a sound guy on a forum, and then he like links his SoundCloud, and they're like, oh man, this is pretty good. And this guy makes one of the best video game soundtracks of all time. And I mean, the guy is going to be in crazy demand now, I assume. It's such an insane story. I almost don't believe it. Like, it's just nuts.
Yeah, it's like you never know. Just keep creating. What were you going to say, Rich?
Yeah, I feel like he wants to stay with the team. I don't think he's gonna do anything else.
Honestly, fair.
I feel like this team gives him so much creative. Like I listened to an interview with him, and he's basically like this past 5 years has been like doing tracks on its own based on the game, and sometimes even out of the game. Like for example, that techno track, that Goplu fight track, and also the Sprung fight track. That was like discarded piece of music that he did, and then when the game director went through the list and got to the bottom of the list and listened to it, and he was like to the composer that, hey, what is this, we need to put this in the game, and the composer was like, no, I thought that was trash.
It's insane.
You never know, man.
No, and that's great. If he stays there and just becomes part of that studio and just does music for them, great, good for him. That's great too. But either way, he's gonna, whatever he ends up doing will be highly in demand because he's just outstanding.
Yeah, I think he could work on. I mean, theoretically, I don't think that composers are necessarily locked under one studio, so he could theoretically do work on another game with another studio in the meantime before they work on their next game. And so, I mean,
yeah, I feel
voice
like
actors, you don't want them to be oversaturated, but I mean, I don't know, composers, I feel like they could work in so many different genres and be effective.
Yeah, for smaller games and stuff like that. But if you're an individual person making a soundtrack this huge, I think there are like 200 tracks or something. It's
crazy.
It's gonna take the whole development time of the next game.
Possibly, yeah, very likely. And we want to give a specific shout out. His name is Lorian Testar, and I'm sure I butchered that name.
Yeah, shout out Lorian. You did an incredible job.
And we're looping back around to like the opening of this episode. I'm looking at an interview right now. He was completely. Let me see. He spent hours playing on the Nintendo 64, listening to soundtracks of Mario Kart, Mario Party.
One of the best Nintendo consoles.
Nintendo continues to inspire us and haunts the both of you. So,
the Nintendo 64 is one of the best Nintendo consoles.
I mean, Zelda soundtracks are bang. I mean, speaking of eclectic soundtracks, the Zelda games have eclectic banger soundtracks too. So,
when you have the great Ryochi favorites, Banjo and Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64, and all the rare classics.
I think I just confirmed. Yeah, Banjo was not revealed at the Xbox show. So,
one out of 10.
No collectathon. I don't think of Spyro either. So that's I don't know what Xbox is doing. Yeah, I think we covered everything. God, we ran nearly 3 hours. Probably could have gone three more talking about this amazing game.
Yeah, good timing. Right at 3 hours. So
yeah, right at 3 hours. We got the extended cut. Yeah, thank you both for coming on. Is there any final item on your list of notes that you wanted to mention before speak now or forever hold your podcasting peace?
I mean, one thing I want to say is that go back and play the game again or watch what somebody else played, because there is so much stuff to discover when you see some of the scenes again with context. I think this is one of the best games to actually make a new game plus or watching a playthrough worthwhile.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I think you guys talking about, especially you, Ryochi, you're kind of convincing me to fire it back up again and at least do some of the post game content. So if I completed the game,
me too.
So where does it send you back to before the
final fight?
Yeah, so you can just go back to the overworld and start knocking stuff off. So
okay, yeah, I think you're both convincing me. I mean, just again, it's a mark of a good game. Just being in that world, just going around the overworld. I wouldn't mind a few more hours of that. But yeah,
Yeah, there
that's
are
a
a
good shout.
couple amazing bosses in the end game that were
Endgame?
really hard. One of them was so hard that I tried like 15 times and then I just gave up and cheesed the fight with one attack. But
That's funny. Who? What's the? Oh, there's an infamous boss. What is the name?
Simon.
Simon,
Simon. Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
one.
he's like a stone. He's like a triangle stone face looking guy, right?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think I think the only final thing like I would want to say is just, you know, if you for some reason listen to all this and you haven't played the game, and you're not like which shame on you, but and you're not like an RPG fan, so you're like, oh whatever, I'll just listen to it and spoil it, I don't care. This is not a traditional RPG, and I really do think it could be used as a gateway. So, you know, give this game a shot, give this game your time. It's made by people that just were so passionate. The director of this game was tired of working on a mobile game at Ubisoft and just wanted something new. He needed a change. He bet on himself. It's one of the most incredible ragtag stories I've seen of people just banding together and making a game. Like I think the person they hired originally to voice actor for Lume ended up becoming the writer. Like it's just
Yeah,
they
yeah,
had the lead
Yeah.
writer, like, and she's like an accountant or something. Like it's just mind boggling how this game came together. So give it a chance. Give it your time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And again, it's a testament with the composer and everyone that contributed. You never know. You know, just go out and um, make something, and then maybe you can get a Game Pass bag. So, but yeah, thank you both so much for coming on. I'm glad that we were fine. I was finally able to get both of you to come on. It was in my plans to get both of you. And this, I think, I'm very happy that this was both of your debut on here for this premiere episode of this little sub series that I'm doing. Dorian, I definitely plan on getting you on in the future. I just want to find like the right project
Yeah, it's
to
tough
do
me
it.
being a AAA fanatic. I do play some independent games, which is kind of what why you should play
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
leans
yeah, yeah.
towards, and
Well,
is
yes,
great for.
anything that goes underappreciated, honestly.
For sure, for sure. So I do understand. It was great to finally be on here though, and you know, I will continue to I'll continue to try to expand my own gaming horizons, and hopefully we can
Yeah,
link
and
up
you
on
never know
something
if
else.
there's. I mean, I kind of put the shout out again for the 2025 year-ending episode that I always love to do, for people just can just yap on about for a few minutes about a game that they thought went underappreciated during the year. So for sure, keep that in mind as well. And Ryochi, oh man, God help me, I have a very ambitious episode planned that um, it's gonna be a logistically very fun, but we're gonna pull it off. So yeah, look out for that one in the near future. But yeah, thank you both. And my final sign off will be: let it be known, when you escape the creative prison that is Ubisoft, you never know what you can go out there and create. So thank you all very much for listening, and we will see you next time.